Namaskar. Very warm good evening to all, and welcome you all to the today's webinar on panel discussion on analysis of Union Budget 2020-2023. Today it is our pleasure to have Shri Bhartruhari Mahtab Sir, Hon'ble MP Lok Sabha Cuttack Constituency as our chief guest. Guest of honor CMA P Raju Iyer Sir, Honorable President of our institute. Special guest CMA Niranjan Mishra Sir, Central Council Member. In absence, CMA BB Nayak Sir, Regional Council Member. Our four eminent panelists, Professor Dr. S.N. Mishra Sir, CMA Niranjan Swai Sir, CMA Amit Kumar Sarkar Sir, Dr. CMA C.A. Abhishek Murli Sir. One of our special guests, CMA Uttam Kumar Nayak, Vice Chairman ICAI EIRC, could not attend due to some unavoidable urgent works. Respected senior members, past chairman of EIRC and the chapter, esteemed members, and all learned participants, chairman of the chapter CMA Himoj Mishra, and all other professional colleagues in the managing committee of Bhubaneswar chapter and other chapters at Odisha, students representing from printing and media attended in this digital platform. I, CMA Satyadar Singh, Chairman PD Committee, on behalf of Managing Committee of Bhubaneswar chapter, warmly welcomes you all to the today's webinar and also convey my sincere thanks and gratitude to all the dignitaries with us in the virtual mode for accepting our invitation in spite of their busy schedule. Before introducing our today's guest and the panelists, I would like to request officials of the chapter to play Institute Anthem as a mark of inauguration of the webinar in virtual mode. Thank you. Now I am very much excited to introduce and welcome our today's guest and panelist. I would like to welcome our chief guest, Shri Bhartruhari Mahtab Sir, Honorable MP of Lok Sabha Cuttack Constituency. Shri Mahtab Sir, born in 1957 at Agarpada, Bhadrak. He is an Indian politician, the son of late Shri Bhartruhari Mahtab. He is a member of the Biju Janata Dal political party. He was elected to the 12th Lok Sabha in 1998 from Cuttack Constituency in Odisha. He was re-elected to Lok Sabha in 1999, 2004, 2009, 2014 and 2019 from the same constituency. He received the Outstanding Parliamentary Award 2017. He is also the recipient of Sansad Ratna Award 2017, 2018, 2019, 2022 for his outstanding performance in debates. Thank you, sir, for acceptance of our invitation.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now I would like to welcome our Honorable President, CMA P Raju Iyer sir. CMA P Raju Iyer sir is a fellow member of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India and is in practice since 2000 and associate member of Institute of Company Secretary of India and the Chartered Institute of Management UK. He elected to the council for the term 2015 to 2019 and 2019 and 2023 and elected as Vice President of the Institute for the year 2020-21 and taken responsibility as President for the year 2020, 22 and 23. He has a rich experience over a period of 4 decades with increasing and progressive responsibility covering wide areas of organizational development, wealth creation, etc. He has been chairman and the member of various committee and boards of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India during his tenure in the council. He was elected as the chairman of SIRC of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India for the year 2013 and 14. He has received Par Excellence President Award for his excellence, Shri Rosaiya, then the Governor of Tamil Nadu. Thank you, sir, being with us. Now I would like to welcome our own mentor, CMA Niranjan Mishra sir, Central Council member. He is a fellow member of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India and in the field of practice. He elected to the Council of the Institute for the year 2015-2019 and 2019 and 2023. During that term, 2015 to 2019, he led chairman of Taxation Department, Regional Council and Chapter Coordination Committee. He is the past chairman of Bhubaneswar Chapter also and has been associated with CMA profession around 28 years. At present, he has taken his responsibility as chairman committee on cost and management account for public and government services. Thank you, sir, for all time support. Now I would like to introduce our Regional Council member, the Treasurer of EIRC, CMA Vibhuti Bhushan Naik sir, in his absence. Vibhuti Bhushan Naik sir is a fellow member of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India. He retired as DGM Finance from OPDCL in GIDCO, and at present he is the field of practice. He elected as Regional Council member of ICI EIRC for the year 2019, 2020, 23. He was the Vice Chairman and at present taken responsibility of Treasurer and Chairman Studies Committee ICI EIRC. He is the past Chairman of ICI Bhubaneswar Chapter and associated with this profession more than 25 years. Now I would like to welcome Professor Dr. S.N. Mishra sir. Dr. S.N. Mishra sir graduated in economics, postgraduated in applied economics and did his PhD in economics in 2011 from Utkal University. He joined the Indian Economic Service in the year 1976 and trained in the Institute of Economic Growth in New Delhi. He handled the International Development Agency task in the Ministry of Finance as a research officer and joined the Indian Defence Account Service in 1979 and worked in important assignments like Director of Finance DRDO, Controller of Finance, Ordnance Factory Board, etc. He chaired a committee to draft the Defence Procurement Manual 2005, which received economics from the Prime Minister's Office. Post-retirement in 2012, he has been teaching economics, constitutional law and service law at the KIT University, Bhubaneswar. He also mentors students to crack the civil service examination. He takes classes as a visiting faculty in Utkal University, IIMC, NIFT regularly and delivers lecture at College of Defence Management, Secunderabad, National Academy of Audit Accounts, Shimla, National Institute of Financial Management, Faridabad, and National Institute of Management Accounts, Pune. Thank you, sir, for acceptance of our invitation. Now, I would like to welcome our own mentor and advisors, CMA Niranjan Swain sir. CMA Niranjan Swain sir is a fellow member of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India and an associate member of the Institute of Company Secretary of India. He is having more than 35 years rich experience in different areas, which includes financial, treasury management, project financing, contract management, etc. He is the past chairman of Bhubaneswar Chapter and Eastern India Regional Council of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India and contributed more than 150 articles published in various reputed publications. He retired from the position of Senior General Manager Finance from Odisha Power Generation Corporation, and after post-retirement, he is practicing as an advocate and tax consultant in Odisha High Court. He is associated with profession around 30 years and one of the renowned guest faculty and resource person in taxation, both direct and indirect. Sir, for your continued support. Now I would like to welcome CMA Amit Kumar Sarkar sir. CMA Amit sir is graduated from Bardhaman University, West Bengal. He is a fellow member of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India. He is presently a senior director partner in the indirect tax practice of Messrs. Deloitte Hoskin and Sells LLP, a leading professional service firm, and has been associated with the firm more than past 12 years. He has post-qualified experience more than 22 years in the areas of indirect taxation, accounts, and commercial functions. As an indirect tax professional, he deals extensively with multinational and Indian companies across various sectors. His clientele include both domestic and multinational companies in manufacturing, financial service, and logistics sector. Before joining Deloitte, he has also worked for Pricewaterhouse, PwC, another big four accounting firm. Prior to joining consulting, he has worked with leading companies across multiple sectors for close to 10 years. His work profile included handling indirect taxes, commercial, and accounting in various capacities. In addition to experience in indirect tax and allied function, he has also been extensively engaged in ERP implementation related tax advisory roles for setting up and configuring ERP system for various companies. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation. Now, I would like to welcome CMA CA Dr. Abhishek Murli sir. Dr. Abhishek Murli sir is an associate member of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India and fellow member of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India. Multi-additional degrees such as PhD, LLB, MBA, CGMA, CIMA London, CISA USA, DISA, ICI, Audit UK, DLED. He is a practicing chartered accountant at Chennai, president of All India Taxpayers Association and a Citizen Awareness Forum of India. He is the youngest regional council member elected for 2 terms to the SIRC of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and became the youngest secretary of SRIC ICI in the year 2020-21. He is an expert in direct taxation, international taxation, litigation, appeals, valuation, due diligence, merger, acquisition, etc. And he has spoken more than 1,500 seminars, workshops, and conferences. He has received the Abraham Lincoln Excellence Award from the International Peace Council USA for his excellence in tax sector and loudly contribution of repute by addressing more than 500 seminars during pandemic COVID-19. Dr. Abhishek Murli sir is a member of Committee of the Implementation and Survey of the Faceless Assessment, Faceless Appeal Proceeding constituted by the Ministry of Finance, Government of India. He is a non-academic member of Board of Studies of Madras University. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
For information of all our guests, panelists, and participants, I take privilege to state that this chapter have taken initiative and conducted a pre-union budget discussion on 27th January 2022, just prior to the union budget by our Honorable Finance Minister on 1st February 2022. The outcomes of the discussion have already been shared to Department of Finance, Government of Odisha. Further, today we have also successfully conducted a press meeting to analyze the post-union budget 2020, 22, and 23. Dear galaxy of intellectuals, we had a lot of expectation from union budget, specifically for common people. Overall, the union budget is growth-oriented and pro-development, which seeks to lay down the foundation of the economy for the next 25 years. Despite repeated waves of COVID-19 infection, supply chain disruption, and inflation, the Indian economy is expected to register a growth of 9.27% in the current financial year, implying that the overall economic activity has recovered from the pandemic levels. Understand the implication of budget 2020-22 for individuals, corporates, and economy. Our eminent panelist will deliberate the impact of union budget on social economic effects to common people and country as a large. Both the session will be very interactive. Without taking much of time, I would like to request our chairman, CMA Mishra, to deliver his welcome address.
Thank you, Shakti sir. Very warm good evening to one and all. Respected today's chief guest, Honorable MP, Shri Bhartruhari Mahtab sir, guest of honor and president of our institute, CMA P Raju Iyer sir, special guest, CMA Niranjan Mishra sir, and today's panelist, Professor Dr. S.N. Mishra sir, CMA Niranjan Swai sir, CMA Amit Kumar Sarkar sir, and Dr. Abhishek Murliji. All the CMAs, invitees, guests join in today's webinar at Pan India. Chairman and all MC members of all the chapters at Odisha and my professional colleges in Management Committee of WEBINT Chapter. On behalf of organizing team, I CMA Himoj Mishra, Chairman of ICAI Bhubaneswar Chapter, warmly welcome you all to today's webinar on panel discussion on analysis of Union Budget 2022-23. We also convey our hearty thanks and profound gratitude to Shri Bhartruhari Mahtab sir and CMA P Raju Iyer sir and all the special guests and panelists for acceptance of our invitation. I pray before Almighty for all of you and your beloved one good health, wishing a grand success of today's webinar. Thank you all for active support and cooperation. Jai Jagannath. Namaskar.
Thank you, CMA Himoj Mishra, Chairman of ICAI Bhubaneswar Chapter. Now I will request CMA Niranjan Mishra sir, Council Member and Chair of Stand Management for the Public and Government Service, to address the gathering.
Good evening. My respect to all my panelists and especially the chief guest of the occasion, Shri Bhartruhari Mahtab sir. He not a new face for us. Several times when we approached him with glad acceptance, he has accepted our offer. I think this is the 4th or 5th time he has he is with us, and he is very passionate for our profession. And also he has also in the past, when there was a dieters code, at that time he also supported our institute with some other MP from our state. Sir, we are very much grateful to you, sir, for your passion and for your support to our institute. And in the long run, we will also expect same type of support from you, sir. My president, CMA P Raju Iyer sir, CMA Vibhuti Bhushan Naik, and CMA Uttam Naik, the regional council members in their absence here. CMA Himoj Mishra, Chairman of our chapter. CMA Shaktidhar Singh, Chairman PD Committee of our chapter. Professor Dr. S.N. Mishra sir, he is a very stalwart, and he also one of the family members. When we approach him, he also with the accepts our request. Thank you, sir. CMA CA Dr. Abhishek Murli, stalwart, and though he is very young, but in experience and in his qualification, he is very rich. So I am also happy to see you, sir, for your deliberation. CMA Amit Kumar Sarkar sir, he is a stalwart in India taxation. He is one of the supporting hands for our institute in the India taxation area. And when we started the taxation department in the year 2016-17, I was the chairman. He supported us a lot, and with his support, we have released the 15 fortnightly tax bulletin. Also, we have released 17-18 books on India taxation specific sector-wise, sector-specific. And he was also instrumental in preparing the pre-budget memorandum several times for our institute. Thank you, sir. We are giving warm welcome to our this event. CMA Niranjan sir, he also very popular in the institute. He also one of the stalwart, and he is also the supporting hand for our taxation department of the institute. He is expert in diet and India tax both. And his special area is litigation and tax management. We will speak on this subject today. And Sudan Antipati sir is the secretary of this chapter. My CMA members on this platform are other resource persons, other experts, members, students, and all my colleagues here. It is very we are very fortunate to have with us Shri Bhartruhari Mahtab sir with us, and he also very instrumental for this budget, because he was also finance committee chairman once in the government of India. Today the subject is very vital, because we have conducted pre-union budget meet here, though it was very late to conduct the pre-union budget meet, but it was very specific for some points for the Odisha government, say starting from the agriculture sectors, state potato mission, some highlighting some non-static sectors like your static sectors also, and we have also submitted our memorandum to Shri Vishal Dev, the Finance Secretary of our state. Today also we have conducted a press meet, and these are the very common phenomena for our institute, not only at WEBINT chapter, Pan India we are conducting this type of event. I am not telling about anything about my institute. Our president sir is there. He will update everybody about the institute. So, but coming to the budget, today also the same question asked by our learned some press people and some members. When I'm meeting some politicians, I also met Sujit Kumar sir and some other people also. They are asking whether this budget is good or bad. This good or bad, though we are expert, financial expert, we cannot say in one go that this is a good budget or this is a bad budget. We are not so expert. But one thing we can tell, one blueprint is required, one plan person is required to mature the budget proposal digitally placed by our Honorable Finance Minister. I am giving one example. Suppose the railway sector. If railway sector is improved, basically our state will be more benefited, because there will be connectivity between southern part of the state and the coastal part of the state. The terrorism activity will be reduced. MSC will be benefited. Our employment generation will be increased. There are a lot of opportunity, but whether that will be materialized or matured within these 5 years, that is a big question. Because if you want to do something, if you want to do anything, then certainly the cooperation of state government is required. That is one criteria. And not only state government, they have to also involve the professionals, finance professionals, maybe chartered accountants, maybe cost accountants, and again the private entrepreneurs. Because these 4 are the main pillars of the implementation of any focused project. So that is one big question. Because I am giving one example, say from my state, we have started potato mission in 2015. That project is failure. I am not blaming state government. I am also blaming me. I am also blaming our own people, because they are either they are not understanding the government's vision, or government is unable to implement the budget, implement the proposal at the grassroots level. Say you can take the example of your MOU in the 2004. From 2004 onwards, our government has signed about 92 MOUs, and out of this 46 only materialized as of now. So what the reason of failure? So if you count the reason of failure, then one point will be we are failing in ease of doing the business. We know our state government, our state minister is very vibrant, very focused, visionary, and he is also moving parallel with the mission of our Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji. But what the lacuna? This lacuna we have to find out, and how all the visions of state government or the central government, how it will materialize, how it will mature. That responsibility of all the citizens. Not only that government has declared the union budget and declaring the budget, but when they are going to implementation, there are a lot of loopholes in the administrative machinery, starting from the land acquisition, deforestation, your approval of the projects, your anything. Those are coming on the way of any projects. They are still under the control of administrative machinery, and there are loopholes. No, everybody will admit that. So how will eradicate that loopholes, and how will eradicate that hurdles, so that the mission and vision of our Honorable Finance Minister or Honorable Prime Minister or our Honorable State Chief Minister Shri Naveen Patnaik ji will be fulfilled. That is the responsibility of all the citizens of the country and all the citizens of the state. But that is one thing. Second, if you go by the another dream, connectivity, after your Bharatmala, then Sagarmala, now Parvatmala is coming out. So there's good vision. By that way, we can connect all the state level, all the interior parts of the country to another interior parts of the country. It's a good thing. But whether that will materialize or that will mature within the certain period of time is a big question. So that should be, if that is materialized and it is matured, then definitely my state, my country will be number one in the globe. That time we have to wait. If you go by the other points, say government told union budget, it will be digital currency, they will issue the digital currency. We'll go by the digital, everything will be digital. It's okay, no issue. But if you go by the real story, in last 2 years, during the Corona Kal, out of the total 100% of the areas, 24% were there were not connectivity, proper connectivity with the internet. And if you go by the education policy, online education was imparted everywhere. But what about those 24% areas? Still people are 2 years back to the standard education because they have not availed this online education in this Corona Kal. So there are things we have to also take up. And I am giving one thing, I am giving one example. In last year, I have been to Gangtok. There's a ropeway. And I wanted to make payment to the digital mode. But they told no, sir, it's not possible because the internet is not working. So this is the thing. When we go by the digital everywhere, then our primary motto is to see how all the areas, how all the peoples, all the stakeholders will be digitally connected. That's the primary responsibility. So these are the some questions coming to my mind. So I am not expert. We have to listen our stalwarts in the data session, in the economics front, and in the industry front. So I am not putting anything because as a journalist, though I am a professional, but as a general common man, I am putting all these questions. Say coming to the MSME sector. In MSME sector, last year I was discussing with our state cooperative minister and some political leaders of Bharatiya Janata Party. We are discussing how the MSME will be given boost so that they can operate. I have given two examples. Suppose in March 20, one project was about to trial run. They are about to produce their products on trial run, but they did not produce. So industry was sick. Industry was not performing from March 20 till March 22. For 2 years, that industry became non-operative. What about those machineries? What about those assets? Government is giving some boost. They are giving some moratorium. They are extending the moratorium period. But what about the interest of that 2 years? So that thing, all the government should look into that. Say some fixed cost. MSME has incurred some fixed cost during Corona Kal without any production. Small MSME, they have suffered. Okay, new startup came. Maybe there are some benefit they are getting from the government. They have some own finance. That's why they've grown up. But what about the other MSMEs? Why all the startups could not materialize? Because maybe due to some lacunas are there. So since Bhartruhari Mahtab sir is here, so he will see that. And sir, we are in our Bhubaneswar chapter, we have about 600 members. Anytime, anywhere, you can seek your support. We are there, sir. And anytime we can with you, and we can also give something else to on any matter, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Satyendra Singh, PD Committee Chairman, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for briefing for your brief address on activities of Bhubaneswar chapter and the state perspective on budget. Now I would like to request our Honorable President of the Institute, CMA P Raju Iyer, sir, kindly address.
Good evening, sir. Good evening to everyone. Wishing everyone happy, healthy, and prosperous days. The Vastu Pastami has started yesterday. Wishing everyone happy Vastu Panchami. The period will be excellent and we will be having very good health atmosphere. Respected our Chief Guest, Shri Bhartruhari Mahtab, who has consented to be the Chief Guest, taking his valuable time. Respected CMA Niranjan Mishra ji, my colleague in the Council, and who has highlighted all the issues and how intricacy the budget and other things are going to be. Excellent address he has made now. Respected CMA Uttam Kumar Naik, who is the Regional Council Member of ARC. CMA Vibhuti Bhushan Naik, Regional Council Member of ARC. Dr. our eminent resource persons, Anil Sarkar and Jason Mishra ji, Abhishek Murali ji, and the PD Committee Chairman, Satyendra Singh ji, and the CMA Suryanarayan Singh, the Secretary, and the CMA Sadguru Kumar Raut, Treasurer, CMA Hinoj Mishra, Chairman of WEBINT Chapter. Excellent arrangements have made. It's a very good thing that you are able to get the budget, and we are having an eminent chief guest who is well versed and will be motivating us. As pointed out by CMA Niranjan Mishra, will be definitely whatever the required by the government, whatever required by Honorable MP, we are ready to do it. We are having 144 chapters, and of course, Bhubaneswar chapter and in Odisha, so many chapters are there. We are ready to support any of the schemes what our chief guest needs. As far as union budget is concerned, union budget 2022 announced by the Honorable Finance Minister is a balanced effort to improve the overall economic growth. All portions of the union budget are consistent with the government's Make in India priority, and the talk about the government's operating as a trust-based government figured as another green tick in the checklist towards realizing the goals for India at 100. Yeah. Now we are India at 75. How we are going to reach India at 100? That is how the budget has been made. There is also a vision for the long term to make India globally competitive. The budget is aimed at complementing the macroeconomic level growth, focus with the microeconomic level, all inclusive welfare focus, promoting digital economy and fintech, technology and development, energy transition, and relying on virtuous cycle, stating that the private investment with the public capital investment helping to crowd in private investment. So there will be so many things we have to do as part of CMA Niranjan strategy, and we have to ensure that all the things are happening. As a professional, we'll be definitely supporting whatever the effort is required. We appreciate the reform measures of the Union Budget 2022, focusing on the important pillars such as BM Gati Sakti, inclusive development, productivity enhancement, and investment, sunrise opportunities, energy transition, and climate action, and financing of investments. Higher allocation to MSME sector, startups, and the PLA scheme will give subsequent push to infrastructure development, which is a major drive of the growth for India. As pointed out by CMA Niranjan Mishra, I wish to inform the members that our institutes have brought up the very good guidance note on MSME sector, which is highlighting what are the schemes available, how does we reach from the central government level and various state government levels. So this will be very much useful. So we have to reach as a profession, reach the MSME associations, tiny and small medium associations, so that we'll be able to support them and we will be able to give them the required cost management support required so that they will be able to grow. Same way for the startups also, they will be requiring our support so that which can give a very good impact for the MSME and the startups. Same way, the PLA scheme. Under PLA scheme, we have brought a very good guidance note. And in fact, I wish to inform the members that we had a discussion with our Honorable Minister P. Goyal ji and on PLA scheme and what are the various indices, what are the hitches, what are the issues we are able to identify, what things to be done. We have already submitted our requirement, the issues to the Honorable Minister and the concerned authorities also. So under the PLA scheme, especially the local content certificate, how as a cost and management accountant, we will be able to give the certificate and how we will be able to ensure that local content inclusive for where the inter-transactions are there, where they are producing on their own, where for the supply to the group companies, all those issues we were able to highlight in the meeting. Along with the pushing for growth, the budget also wants it to be a sustainable in a welcome move for the automobile industry. The government announced the battery swapping policy, which has a making of the being game changer to give a fillip to adoption of electric vehicles. The process of migration to electric vehicles has taken longer time planned, but is expected to be faster in supporting the infrastructure gets installed. So the battery swapping is a very good move announced by the Finance Minister, and so that electronic vehicles will be able to move and we will be able to have a good climate and contribution to the climate action also. And the countries with a well-developed network of roads always progress faster. The proposal to build another 25,000 kilometers of highways in the financial 2023, that is more than 65 kilometers per day, shows the government's ambition towards infrastructure development. So if we are able to achieve 65 kilometers every day, then it will be a very good achievement, and we hope we'll be able to achieve it. The industry is more than willing to work with the government to build the swapping policy and to share any insights needed along with the part. An added focus on sunrise sector of artificial intelligence and the semiconductors are expected to further and faster adoption of the green mobility. As an extension of the ministry, the institute and its members are always committed to contribute constructively to the development of our nation. We are confident that Indian economy is in the safe hands and optimistic that India's aspiration to be $5 trillion economy by 2024 would be achieved under the able leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister. We commend this aspiration and stated in synchronized with the government. We assure our continuous support in the development of our nation. As stated by CMA Niranjan Mishra ji, we are having eminent panelists and our chief guest who is well known and who is well versed in these aspects because he is in the parliament, he knows. With these words, I once again thank all our honorable chief guests and eminent speakers for their kind presence and look forward for a fruitful deliberations and interaction. My best wishes for a grand success of this webinar. Thank you very much. Wishing everyone happy, healthy, good days. And again wishing Punjabi and Saraswati Puja. Yesterday we had a Saraswati Puja celebration. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good day.
Thank you, sir, for your kind presence and being with us and your wonderful deliberation by a brief highlighting the union budget. Thank you, sir. Now, we are very much excited to listen to our chief guest. Now, I would like to request Shri Bhartruhari Mahtab, sir, Hon'ble Member of Parliament, Cuttack Constituency, to address the participants.
Thank you, Mr. Raju Iyer, speaking so kind words about me. I would also thank Shaktidhar Singh also for giving a long eulogization relating to my activities during last 20-25 years in Parliament. I also thank Niranjan Babu for remembering that this is the 4th time I'm participating in your deliberation, and other dignitaries who are participating in this deliberation. I have been speaking on budget invariably since 2001 or 2002. I've seen number of finance ministers delivering speeches, longest speeches, and also the changes that they get affected through their taxation policy. And a lot of changes have happened during last 20-25 years. But this budget stands out quite differently. I would say the finance minister deserves compliments for presenting a budget that looks into the future with while keeping a close eye on the ground. And this budget is presented amid a challenging economic environment. The budget has laid out a roadmap for suggesting growth and putting in building blocks for India's long-term development. All of you have heard that she has another 25 years planning, which she has explained not in that great detail, but she has said that by 2047, what should India be achieving? And on that path, growth is one, but other building blocks also is mentioned. Of course, sitting in opposition, we may criticize that is it possible to build 65 kilometers of national highway per day? But we never anticipated that NHAI will be building 25 to 30 kilometers per day. This was not a situation 10 years ago, but now it is possible. And so enhancing that with rapid speed. But the question would be relating to the land acquisition. That problem still is there. But I would say we see a clear intent, because budget, of course, after all, explains the intent of the government. And here in this budget, 2022-23 budget, clearly there is a clear intent, the right proposals, and matching allocations in many areas that could contribute to make India a modern, developed, and an inclusive nation. Here I would like to also mention the changes that have actually come in, especially keeping last 2 years in view. Factories have started operating. Market is now opening. And one instance which the Honorable Finance Minister gave during her speech, which we don't find in the written version of her speech, but the slip was she had carried about the GST collection within 1 month, 1.4 lakh crores. That is something very, very, very praiseworthy, that our system is improving. And it's not something that you can just switch off the total market and then switch on so that market will flow. But that is not the situation. But actually, things have improved a lot, and with this opening up of our economy. One of the most outstanding features of the budget is the government's emphasis on capital expenditure. And this is something in comparison to previous budgets. Here, the capital expenditure, more stress has been given and more funding has been provided, allocation has been provided on capital expenditure. And I would say the finance minister has penciled around 35.4% hike in the central government's capital expenditure plan to 7.5 lakh crores in financial year 22-23. I would say integrated planning and execution can considerably increase domestic productivity and export competitiveness. Another priority is generation of gainful employment. The capital expenditure boost in itself will generate millions of jobs directly and indirectly through its multiplier effect on other sectors. Let us not only confine our deliberation to cement, steel, and mining activity, but it will have a multiplier effect. A special feature is the unprecedented helping hand, which is provided to all the states for their capital expenditure through a provision of 1 lakh crore of interest-free 50-year loan additional to their normal borrowing ceiling. So this is something which was never thought of. So for instance, last year during the COVID period, it was 5,000 crores, which was increased to revised estimate was increased to 15,000 crores. But here in this budget, it is 1 lakh crore, which respective state government depends on the states, how much they can borrow or how much they can take from the central government, providing that these are the manner in which we want to spend this money. And that will be a 50-year. You have to return back after 50 years, which is as good as not returning that money, at least. Here, I would say the credit guarantee scheme for MSMEs, because recently we just heard about the issues of medium and small scale industries, and is being revamped to provide a massive 2 lakh crore of rupees of new lending, additional credit of hospitality, additional credit to hospitality, tourism, and related, which are actually pandemic affected sectors, is being provided through highly successive emergency credit line guarantee scheme. The outlay for the Pradhan Mantri Gram Sadak Yojana has been increased by 27%. Moreover, supplemental funding will be provided to states to meet their share in respect of certain priority sectors. Adequate provisions have been made also that with the Finance Commission recommendations, 130 central sponsored schemes have been revamped and restructured into 65, enabling greater flexibility and impact. While handling the financial predicaments of today, the budget lays a foundation for solving the policy problems of tomorrow. It contains a wide, carefully conceived range of fund allocation and policy initiatives for the India of 2047. I would say the focus of budget on technology and infrastructure-led growth will have positive impact. Proposed technology-led development in health and education will help the country to a large extent in this pandemic situation. The production-linked initiative schemes in 14 sectors and extension of emergency credit line guarantee scheme would be helpful, mitigating supply side constraints. But there are other issues also which I think you will be also deliberating. I have some issues here which I believe, given a chance to say this in the Parliament, probably on Tuesday, I'll be speaking on the budget, if not yesterday, and if not tomorrow, that's Monday. But tomorrow we have other agenda. Hopefully on Tuesday, the budget discussion will be commencing. The sectoral allocation is slashed in critical sectors like agriculture and farmers' welfare, higher education, rural development, and women and child development. This could hamper inclusive growth. Reduction in MGNREG, of course, it's a demand driven. If money is less allocated in this budget, it may increase in different supplementary budgets. That has been happening for quite some time. But already there are serious issues, especially relating to Odisha, because rice is not being lifted from Odisha. And it's not only, some are making it a political issue, but I think it directly impacts the farmers to a very great extent. Middle class and poor people are heavily impacted. And I think this is a point which seldom gets shrouded under different other issues. And that is the issue of price rise and inflation. Budget has not addressed price rise being faced by people. To compound this further, there is a sharp decline in LPG subsidy. This will affect household economics very badly, and women will bear the brunt of LPG price rise. The increased level of cess and surcharge is shrinking the mandate transfer of share tax due to the states. More than, and this is a point which we have been raising it, being a regional party, being a provincial party, we have been raising it repeatedly, that more than 20% of union taxes are proposed to be collected through levy of cess and surcharge, which is against the spirit of federalism, or in today's parlance, cooperative federalism. You mentioned about potato mission in your initial remarks, but during last 2 years, another mission has been propagated by the state government of Odisha, and that is Millet Mission, and which finds place in this budget, in this 22-23 budget speech of Honorable Finance Minister. But in Odisha, Millet Mission has been a game changer in promoting nutritional security and augmenting farmers' income, especially in the undivided Cuttack district. This has been a great success. And one would be happy that government of India has recognized the importance of millet in the union budget in the context of declaration of 2023 as International Year of Millets by United Nations. Increased allocation under Jal Jeevan Mission, PMAY, are welcome steps. However, people of Odisha have genuine demand of rural housing that has been neglected to a great extent. Here I would say, other than, as you mentioned, Niranjan Babu mentioned about Bharatmala, Sagarmala, Parbatmala. And regarding this Sagarmala, we have two functional ports actually. Gopalpur is a minor port even today. Number of other ports, 4 other ports are still in the making. Not much investment has come in. But in the capital expenditure side, when more money is spent on Bharatmala, Sagarmala and Parbatmala, it will be generating a lot of employment. Relating to digital currency, because that is a point which cryptocurrency and digital currency, internet connectivity is an issue which needs to be addressed. Another very funny thing has come up is relating to the farm, to the agriculture sector. While going through that demand for grants in agriculture, I find that drone technology will be promoted by farmers, by the government, so that farmers can spray fertilizers, insecticides, and to protect their cultivation. And this is in 2022. This seems little impromptuous, because today, as we all know, more than 80% of our farmers are small and marginal farmers or landless farmers. How do you expect drone technology to be used by these farmers? This is something very funny. And of course, in a 25 years time, things may change. Large farmers may utilize it. But as we understand that in Israel, collective farming or state farming, that is happening where drone technology is being used to protect their own cultivation. But in India, it is very difficult. If drone technology will be used to find out actually the crop loss, and that will help the insurance sector, that is another thing. But these are certain issues which needs to be explained by the government in a greater way. I believe I have tried to cover some of the aspects of the budget, but this year the budget was only 90 minutes, covering around all the aspects. I'm not talking about defense. I'm not talking about especially the IT sector and also the post and telegraph sector. There are issues where large amount of money has been provided. And relating to disinvestment of LIC, that is another issue. Let us not discuss it on a political point of view, but these are certain issues where people have a stake and they also have a say. In that respect, government, of course, has its own way of doing it. I would conclude by saying that this year's budget that we are deliberating now is something very unique, and this is a very forward-looking budget. And that's why I believe that, as it is said in English, the taste of the pudding is in the eating. In that respect, I would say that it all depends how we implement this much of money. It is 39 lakh crores of budget, and the total tax and the loan that is being collected, the finance minister said, will be 22 lakh crores. So there is a huge gap of around 17 lakh crores. So in that respect, how that money is going to be, and this is a deficit. This is the deficit. How it is going to be met, that needs to be answered by the government. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent, sir. Excellent. Excellent.
For your kind presence and enlighten to our members with your kind words. and insightful deliberation on various perspectives of union budget, specifically health, education, agriculture, and infrastructure, etc. We request you, sir, kindly stay with us to the maximum time possible as permissible.
I'll try to.
Thank you, sir. Due to busy preoccupation, Professor Dr. S.N. Mishra sir will leave. So I would like to request Professor S.N. Mishra sir kindly address.
Can you give me a screen sharing option?
Sir, there is a screen sharing in the below in near to chat button. At the right side of chat button, there is a share screen.
New share screen, yeah.
Kain? Ita? Ita कौन की है? ना इटा limit उड़ा कौन बोले?
You have to give me that sharing option.
Okay.
Kindly give me that sharing option, then I will show.
So, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, it is available. You just go to there.
I'm going to share, and then I'm not able to go to my PPT.
Sir, first open your PPT, then share.
Sir, you open the PPT in the first. You open the PPT.
Okay.
The
It's done.
Then you go.
Yeah, it's coming.
Sure.
Just give me half a minute.
Okay.
Can you all see now?
Yes.
Sir.
Good afternoon to, good evening to all of you, and for this wonderful opportunity to share my thoughts. I listened to with a lot of interest and intent to the remarks made by our Honorable MP, Mr. Mahtab. While I largely agree with what he has mentioned, I like to bring an added element of introspection into the budget. So in the subsequent presentation that I have for about 15 minutes, let me bring out those concerns. But before I do that, in the last budget, in the midst of a pandemic and economic downturn, the finance minister had quoted the Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore, who had written very beautifully that faith is the bird that fills the light and sings when the dawn is still dark. And very interestingly, the economic survey also largely vindicates that hope. As you see that the GDP will go off by about 9% compared to minus 7.7%. The foreign exchange reserves is good. We are quite comfortable on current account deficit. The concern areas are three. One is the credit offtake. The second is inflation, which is going to possibly cross the glide path about 6%. But most importantly, the borrowing, the fiscal deficit was around 6.9% as against a B of 6.8. And she has pitched it around 6.4. But as you'll all remember that the FRBM Act, which we enacted in 2003, so that hope that we should be able to bring it down to about 3% by 2008. So that borrowing, map is shifting. These are also some of the very good indicators on the gross value addition of the different sectors. Mr. Mahtab also mentioned agriculture is doing extremely well. Industry has bounced back, so has manufacturing. Services, which was really not doing well, which was very, very badly hit, is doing well. But I thought I'll just show the latest Economist, how it looks at the macroeconomic trends in different countries. And you will see that almost every country in 2021, 22 is doing rather reasonably well in the GDP. Where the problem is coming, the problem is two. One is unemployment. And this is one area which I would like to spend a little time on. The euro area is almost having an unemployment of about 7%. India is also around 8%. As per the CMA report, close to 12 crore people were unemployed. Things are a little better, but the unorganized sector continues to be in the thrall of unemployment. The other very interesting data that you find is that almost every country, including Germany, is have a fiscal deficit. So barring Russia, almost every country has had to have become fiscally profligate. So when I have to assess a report, the budget, we all go by what Richard Musgrave says are the three tests of a budget, good budget. The first is the allocational parity. How are you allocating to different sectors? The general sector, which accounts for your defense, your interest payment, the economic sector, which looks at your infrastructure, economic infrastructure, and the social sector, education, health, skilling, sanitation. So that's the first thing. The second, of course, is the issue of distributive justice. Are we being very soft to the super rich? Are we being fair to the middle class? So therefore, Musgrave was very strongly of the view that in a welfare-oriented society, the whole concept should be that the middle class is taxed much low, and you tax the absolute super rich at a rate which is quite high. And of course, the third aspect is the economic stabilization aspect, which Mr. Mahtab also mentioned. Are we able to contain inflation below 5%, unemployment below 5%, and exchange rate variation? So there's the three tests. So now let us see how C has done in respect of these tests. Already Mr. Mahtab has mentioned that these are some of the highlights, very significant increase in capital expenditure by about 35%. The PLI scheme, I'm quite happy that there is a roadmap for fiscal consolidation and not for fiscal profligacy, because this was one debate before the budget, whether she would continue to give fiscal posts or she will be far more careful in terms of fiscal deficit. A thrust on digitization. I very much compliment the budget for the provision of about 3.8 crore additional households with tap water and about 80 lakh new houses to be constructed. Very, very innovative, very, very progressive. The ECLG scheme has been extended. As all of us know, SME provides employment to close to 11 crore people, provides accounting for about 30% of the budget and 50% of our exports. So the finance minister has done really, really well by extending the scheme for one more year, because he has very clearly demonstrated that we have benefited close to 1.3 crore SMEs in the process. I will go to budget at a glance, and as you would see that the tax revenue, has been quite buoyant. Mahtab also mentioned how in the month of January, GST was a record 1.4 lakh crores. So compared to the RE, compared to the collections that we have done till December, this appears to be a very conservative number. And the increase that C is pitching for in 22-23 is also very modest. The point that I'm trying to make is, given the tax buoyancy that we are presently witnessing, the figures for 21-22 appears to be an underestimate, and the figures for 22-23 also looks to be very conservative. Now, I'm quite surprised that in the non-tax revenue, she has reduced it by almost 9.9% in the next year, which essentially is a reflection that we are trying to undercollect in terms of disinvestment. We are also not really improving our dividends from our public sector. That's but the thing that worries me the most is the borrowing, the size of borrowing. If you see 29-20, the size of borrowing was just about 9 lakh crores. So even for 22-23, you are almost double that level of borrowing. So it's a humongous borrowing. So therefore, this is going to have an impact on the cost of bonds. So bond market. While she is saying that she will crowd in private investment, now if you are borrowing such a humongous amount from the market, you are actually not crowding in. You could crowd out private investment. So that's something she will have to have a look at. So as I said, the best thing about the budget, if I have to say, is capital expenditure. Of course, the 6 crores that she has mentioned includes about 50,000 crores for Tata disinvestment. But even discounting that, you see that between 1920, which it was around 3.3 crores, and 7.5 crores is a humongous increase. I joined the budget division in 1977 when I was in the economic service, and I have been watching the budget very, very closely thereafter. I haven't seen a single budget. Mr. Mahtab can check it out. Before 2014, there has never been a single budget where we have fully spent our capital allocation, which is our asset creation. So the present government must be complimented that for the first time during the last 3-4 years, it's not only spending what was allocated the B, it is also improving on that. So that's a very, very remarkable thing. So the rapid expansion of national highways and a whole host of capital expenditure initiatives are really praiseworthy. But as I said, I'm still wary about the fiscal deficits. This is how the rupee will come. Now I come to my areas of concern. Now, as you see, if you look at the revenue disbursement figure, because the budget has 2 components, the revenue part, which is for maintenance, and then you have the capital disbursement part. Now, you'll see that rural employment, where we had spent 1.11 lakh crores, we had actually increased by about 40,000 crores, is now down to 73,000 crores. Now, that 73,000 crores includes 25,000 crores, which have not been paid for in 21-22. So if you take that 25,000 crores, which has to be paid during 22-23, it comes down to 50,000 crores. So Mr. Mahtab said that, it's a demand-driven thing, but I completely disagree with him on this, because this is one program which providing employment to about 8 crore people, of whom unskilled workers, of which about 60 to 70% are scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and women. In fact, if you remember, before the budget, there was a strident demand by very, very sober economists like C. Rangarajan that there should be an urban Manrega. Because, as all of us know, 90% of India is actually unskilled workers. So Professor Rangarajan very legitimately asked a question that why are you not having a Manrega kind of program in the urban areas? So I'm really surprised that how the finance minister has whittled down. This is not based on any ideology. How he has whittled down this allocation by almost 50%. If you take the area payment in 22-23, so it is not sufficient to say no, we'll provide later on. This shows the direction of the budget, which is completely anti-rural unskilled. It's against the rural unskilled poor. Let's go into rural development. Again, there, 70% of India lives in the villages. This is what Gandhi said. Now you see here also rural development, 1.13 lakh crore is now about 77,000 crores. So while we are going, gung-ho about the budget, capital expenditure, let's not miss out these trends. Public health, let's look at public health. As against 71,000 crores in 21-22, we are down to 41,000 crores. So I'll just again, so in capital disbursement, in capital disbursement, very legitimately, the finance minister has increased the allocation in roads and railways significantly. In roads, it has gone up almost 2 times, and in railways from 30,000 crores, it's almost 1.36 crores. Odisha is very, very happy because some of the demands in terms of new railway lines have been accepted. This is very, very good. But just look at your social services. All the capital requirements for building schools, hospital, your healthcare infrastructure, the total allocation is just 11,000 crores, which is around 10,000 crores. So when we are looking at the budget, let's not be overwhelmed by the significant increase in the capital expenditure, but look at the micro elements. Now, social sector investment. If you see here, ICTS, Integrated Child Development, is very little. What pains me the most is the midday meal scheme. You are down from 13,400 crores to about 10,200 crores. So this is your nutrition is a very, very big challenge. 52% of your adolescent girls are suffering from anemia. 36% of your children are suffering from stunting. You're supposed to have a Poshan program to bring it down to 22%. But so what I'm trying to say, in terms of your policy postulation and allocation that you provide, there is a huge, huge gap. This is the allocation priority. As you see the allocation distribution in India, we spend just about 7% on the social sector, whereas any developed country you see, it's around 30%. This is what Musgrave said. What kind of allocational priority you have, how much money you are wasting on your borrowing, or your interest, on your defense, on your subsidy. So you see very clearly that your general services is as high as 51%. If you look at the budget of about 70, 80 countries, I studied, no country actually spends 50% of its budget on payment of loans, on payment of defense, and subsidy. So it's a highly walked priority. So I come to education. Being a teacher myself now, I find it very, very disquieting. Now, in the NEP, which Mr. Mahtab also mentioned, there is a very, very clear signal that we must increase the size of our educational budget to about 6% of the GDP in a phased manner. Now, what has happened? What has happened in India? Now, it's a concurrent subject. The center, which was spending 0.55% in 2015-16, is down to 0.38%. The states, on the other hand, has slightly improved. So you would see that total expenditure, total expenditure on education is down from 3.15% to 3.08%. But a wonderful national education policy, and which very clearly gives out a roadmap. So I have just tried to identify a few states which are doing extremely, extremely well in terms of allocation. You look at Kerala, I don't get into any political issue here. They spend close to 4% of their GDP, about 24% of their central government, their state government expenditure is education. Same with the Delhi. But look at the Gujarat model, which thrives on infrastructure development and other things which are necessary. But look at the allocation for education. It's a piddly 2.8%. So what's your constitutional mandate? Whenever I look at the budget, apart from Richard Musgrave, I look at the constitution. This is the law of the land. The constitution tells me that I must have socio-economic justice for all. I must minimize income inequality. I must distribute resources to subserve common good. I must avoid concentration of wealth. I must put enough money for early childhood care and education. I must raise the level of nutrition. These are not idly promises which the constitution has made. These have to be translated into action. But let us see what are we doing. In terms of hunger, I have already mentioned about 38% of our children are stunted. In terms of nutrition, 61% of our girls are anemic. These are all official documented figures. Rampant distress in the rural areas, multidimensional poverty, very poor learning outcomes, if you see. And on top of it, the World Inequality Report, which has been released, you'll see very clearly where the top 10% enjoy about 60% of the total income. The bottom 50% is having just about 12%. So the income inequality, which is supposed to decrease, which should be the effort of a welfare society, is actually increasing very significantly. So I'm really surprised to hear that there is no discussion, no discourse as to how do we curtail that. So therefore, I come to one of the issues that I come for is why tax collection is so low. India is one country where tax collection is fixed at around 13%. You know, if you see that, you just see the figures. The gross tax, non-tax, as a percentage of GDP, it was 13% in 1819, came down to 2021, 12.2% and 11.7%. So the clear message is taxes are tax collection. While we may say that GST we are doing well, but overall tax collection as a percentage of GDP is lamentably poor. Most of the developed countries you find the tax to GDP ratio is around 30%. So India is in a very, very poor performance as far as tax collection is concerned. So why tax collection is so poor? You know, Mr. Arun Jaitley, after the demonetization, very clearly brought out how tax evasion is absolutely rampant. You know, how the people deposited lots of money during demonetization, which very, very clearly showed that they are not really releasing the proper taxes. So I end with two very important slides. For me, what are the hits and what are the misses? As far as the hits are concerned, I very, very strongly believe with all people that first thing, as I mentioned, that there has been no surrender in capital expenditure allocation. So that's on the other hand, we are spending more as a very significant allocation to roads and railways, but it is not the case with social sector. Continued support to SMEs, thrust on the PIL scheme, digitization of economy and education, fiscal consolidation, allocation for water. But I am very, very happy to find that there is no further dose to the farmers. That PM Kisan scheme, which used to earmark about 1.5 lakh crores, that is not there. That's a good thing that the government has done. And the other very, very good thing that the government has done, that there is no further capital infusion into the public sector banks. The government of India, since the last 6-7 years, has put in close to 4 lakh crores to revive the public sector banks, which have shown different levels of inefficiency. So there is no capital infusion. So I think that's a very, very good thing that the government has done. Now, what are the misses? You know, the first miss, I must say, that the government is really not reviving consumption. You know, I put my guru, the first guru, John Maynard Keynes. Now, Keynes said the key to economic revival is consumption. But I give no tax cut to the middle class. I don't give relief to them. Rural employment will come down. Then how will consumption increase? So let me see the priority and see the budget with reference to what Musgrave would have said. First is allocational parity. We have been crying hoarse that we should spend 6% on education. We keep on spending only 3%. Health. Every document say we should ideally spend 3%. We are spending about 1.3%. We are also whittling down allocation to employment and nutrition and giving it a short shrift. Distributive justice. I'm very, very surprised to find that Mr. Mahtab didn't mention anything about the whole issue of distributive justice. Now, distributive justice is extremely important if you want to have a welfare society. Now, if you see the World Inequality Report, which was brought out by Abhijit Banerjee and Thomas Piketty, so they don't say that you increase the tax on the super rich by a humongous amount. They say even if you just increase it by 1%, you collect close to $242 billion globally. They have found out that because of our very, very pro-rich approach, the average tax rate in the world, particularly the Western world and the US, has come down from almost 58% in 1985 to just about 35%. And in the US, it has come down to 21%. So therefore, there is a distinct policy to favor the super rich and not really help out the middle class. You know, Joseph Stiglitz, in a very wonderful book, had mentioned, lamented how from Franklin D. Roosevelt, who ensured that there is a distributive justice and taxes playing a very important role, how we have become very, very elitist and how we have been generally giving a kid glove treatment to the super rich. The third thing I would like to mention is that the entire growth strategy is not tax propelled, but debt fueled. How we propose to spend all this money for borrowing. And I'm also quite surprised why we are reducing our non-tax revenue targets and why are we bringing down the disinvestment targets. The last but not the least, I would like to mention that GST is essentially a regressive tax. All this hoopla that the GST is increasing, please remember indirect tax is very, very regressive in character. A soap that I use and what is used by somebody who is in the poor income strata pay the same tax. It is a very, very regressive tax. If you read Hugh Dalton's book on public finance, it said, please try to minimize indirect taxes. So therefore, our thrust should be to increase direct tax collection. Today, India has 50-50%. So that I think needs to change. And the most important thing is, today in India and many other countries, liberal democracy is at the crossroads. There is a wonderful book recently written by William Davis, which says why we have stopped trusting the elites. Because there is a perception the elites are only subserving their own interest. And the poor and the lower middle class is getting left out. What Kaushik Basu says, the bottom 50% and the top 10%. So therefore, the bottom 50% is completely bottomed out. And the concept of shared prosperity, which Joseph Stiglitz very strongly mentioned, that is not happening. Prosperity is unequally distributed. And that is largely because of a lack of political will. So I end by saying that in India today, there is a dissonance between growth and development. Growth and development are like two wheels of an economic chariot. So while there is a wonderful roadmap for growth in terms of capital expenditure, the roadmap for education, the roadmap for health, sanitation, nutrition is conspicuously absent. And I think that's a very sad thing. And the second thought I'll just mention is that for heaven's sake, do not try to depend on indirect taxes for your tax collection. Please try to look at huge pockets of tax evasion and look at your tax policy, and you should try to collect more. And finally, I must say that if you are neglecting the social sector allocation, you may have a lot of wonderful roads, lot of school buildings, but it will be drift of quality teachers, quality healthcare, and be aware of this. And so therefore with this, I thought I will wind up my submission on this budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful and energetic deliberation, highlighting this impact of socio-economic perspectives of union budget. Thank you, sir. Now, I would request CMA, CA Dr. Abhishek Murli, sir, President All India Taxpayer, sir, kindly address our gathering.
Thank you very much. Very warm good evening, present here. The beloved Chief Guest, Shri Bhartruhari Mahtab, sir, who gave a very wonderful address and a lot of practical which he shared and his insight on the budget. President of the Institute of Cost Accountants of India, CMA P Raju Iyer, the special guest, and who was key in coordination, the always smiling CMA Niranjan Mishra, sir. Thank you so much for inviting me. CMA Uttam Kumar Nayak and Bhushan Nayak, sir. Of course, our CMA has been coordinating the program and has been comparing it and making it very convenient for us, and all the other eminent personalities, especially the speakers that I'm privileged to share the dais with. Now, following Mishra ji after that address is going to be very, very difficult. But the topic that we are covering today, analysis of the union budget as far as the direct tax matters. And I will be restricting my discussions to non-litigation matters because we have Niranjan Swain, sir, who is a very, very leading professional who will be covering those matters. So I'm going to restrict to non-litigation related matters that reference to direct taxes in this budget. My dear friends, going into this budget, we had heavy expectations. As rightly pointed out by many of the speakers before me, given the inflation, the ground level, forget that 7% to 10%, within 10% we have contained inflation. But for a normal middle class person, for a consumer, you walk into a shop, you want to buy oil, you want to buy biscuit, you want to buy something else. Either the price of that consumer good has gone up, or the quantity has come down, or the quality has come down. These are the three common things we have seen everywhere. And whether it is COVID or non-COVID related, unemployment is high, underemployment is also high. After COVID, the salary of many people have been slashed. It has been reduced, maybe by 50%, 25%, but it has reduced. But the costs, on the other hand, are still going up. So we were all looking forward to this budget, hoping that there will be a lot of changes which will help the middle class, which will help the salary class. So unfortunately, we were like Bahubali before, but we know what happened after presenting the budget. So let us start with the first most critical thing. Are there any changes in the tax slab rates? It has been 7 years since the last change in the tax slab rates, my dear friends. So naturally, we thought, okay, now there will be a change in the tax slab. But unfortunately, there have been absolutely no changes whatsoever as far as your tax slab rates are concerned. And irrespective of what entity you are, individual, no change, company, no change, HUF, no change, partnership firm, no change, nothing. It does not change for anybody, my dear friends. And you are all aware that there is an alternative regime. You have now two regimes, old regime and new regime. New regime, you cannot take any exemptions, you cannot take any deductions, and you can go for the new regime with a reduced rate of tax. But my dear friends, you must remember 7 years, no changes in the tax slab. And don't come and tell me 87-year rebate and all. I tell you what is the problem with the fundamental issue, my dear friends. If my income is 4,99,000, then the tax is 0. If my income is 5,01,000, to earn 2,000 rupees, my dear friends, I have to pay 12,000 rupees tax at the rate of 20%. Is this fair at all? Why will I prefer to earn the 2 rupees or 2,000 rupees? I'd rather not earn that money and pay so much taxes, my dear friends. So therefore, that rebate is to increase the tax base. And I think it has been successfully done now. Now is the time to start making changes to the tax slab rates. And then few days back, our revenue secretary had an interview and this came in the newspaper. I was very shocked to this. Revenue secretary urges the taxpayers, urges the to shift your mindset from tax exemptions. Sir, the person who can make a change in the tax slab rate is one. The persons who have mindset run into several crores. I think the easier option is evident to me. Either you reduce the rates and then you say no exemptions. But without reducing rates, you cannot come and say change your mindset, because there is no incentive for me to do that right now. But this is the approach that I have seen in the budget this time. And to clarify, because I have been doing budget sessions for the last 7 days, one of the most common questions that I'm getting, is there any change in the long-term capital gains rate? Have they increased it? Or any capital gains, have they increased it? Now, please let me clarify here, my dear friends. The only change came in surcharge, not in the tax rates. Now, if you have any capital gains, taxable either under 111A or 112A, then in those cases, this is trading of equity shares, in those cases, the surcharge will be capped at 15%. You're all aware, if you earn more than 50 lakhs income, taxable income, you have surcharge 50 to 1 crore, 1 crore to 1 crore to 3 crores, 3 crores to 5 crores, and 5 crores and up. A person who's earning 5 crores pays surcharge at the rate of 22.5%. His effective tax rate comes almost to 45%. Nearly half the income he's earning, he has to pay in taxes. For them, this is a relief. Surcharge in those cases it will not be more than 15% on the capital gains portion, my dear friends. It's not a bad thing, but it's not beneficial to a large portion of the population. Now they've also changed surcharge when it comes to cooperative societies. Earlier, if it is more than 1 crore taxable at the rate of 12%, the surcharge. Now they said the surcharge is reduced to 7% up to 10 crores. Only if you have income more than 10 crores, it will be taxed at the rate of 12%, my dear. The next change, and in my view, this is the big change in this budget. This budget has a lot of amendments, a lot of technical amendments, many of them litigation related. So I'm sure Niranjan will be touching upon those. But as far as the provisions are concerned, this is the big change when it comes to this budget, my dear. There is now a new type of return that has been introduced called the updated return. When our Honorable Finance Minister mentioned this in the course of the speech, we're all very, very happy. An excellent opportunity, because the Finance Minister said in the speech, she said that now we're introducing a new return. People who want to modify or update their old return that they filed, now you can do so up to 2 years from the end of the relevant assessment year by paying a small fee. Wonderful. Till now, most finance professionals sitting here, you're all aware, till 5 years back, you could file how many ever returns you wanted. Then 5 years back, they brought the cap. And now you're not able to turn beyond the last date of filing, which I'll be touching upon soon. As you can see over here at the top, I've written old proofs. So just to quickly understand where we were before we understand where we are. Earlier, let us take the current financial year, for example, financial year 21-22. In the current financial year, my dear friends, the last date to file a regular return under 139(1) is 31st of July 2022. 31st of July 2022. What is the last date to file a revised return or a belated return? 31st of December 2022. It is 9 months from the end of that financial year, my dear friends. Earlier, it was 12 months. Now they have reduced to 9 months in the last budget. So 31st of December 2022 is the last date. Don't get confused with current year. Due to COVID, they have extended. Actually, it is not COVID. It is due to a website issue. But then for the current year, it is 31st March. But normally speaking, it is 31st December 2022, my dear friends. What if I want to file my return after 31st of December 2022? I cannot file. There is no option for me to file the return of income. I have to make a petition under section 119(2)(b), go to the principal commissioner or chief commissioner or go to CBDT based on the monetary levels. That is the only way that I can file a return of income once this time has left, my dear friends. So therefore, when this announcement came, I was very, very happy. Go on this announcement a little bit more further. An assessee can know whether he has filed a return of income or not. So even if you have not filed a return of income, you can file under this provision. So can file a revised return or update return up to 2 years from the end of the relevant assessment year on payment of a small fee. Now, my dear friends, most people who are familiar with the last few budgets know the budget speech is not enough. It is not adequate to listen to that and go and make a budget analysis. You have to look at the memorandum, you have to look at the finance bill. And last year, very silently in the finance bill, the settlement commission was scrapped. So many large changes came. So naturally, when this provision was read out, I immediately wanted to read the memorandum. So I did read the memorandum. So what are the conditions and what are the penalties to file the return of income? Now, let me give you an example. You are an assessee who is a very, very honest assessee. So what you do is you disclose all your returns, all your incomes, everything you disclose properly and you file a return of income. Subsequently, suddenly, it comes to light that when you filed the return of income, the TDS form 26A, what you referred to, was not updated because the other party did not file it in time. You happen to be an IT professional, not income tax, information technology. So let's assume you're a software company. You filed it yourself. Next year, you go to a finance professional. And then he tells you, what happened, boss? Why have you not claimed? You have TDS, you have not claimed last year. Sir, I want to claim now. What can I do? You cannot do anything because the due date for filing has expired. So now we have updated return. Can I file and claim this TDS under this provision, my dear friends? So now let us understand the details. That is always in the details, my dear friends. The following persons cannot file a return of income. Any assessee who is filing the new to reduce the tax payable, increase the refund, or claim excess loss, you cannot file this updated return. If you want to pay tax, you come. You want to save tax, however genuine case you get out. That is exactly what. So in this case, bona fide assessee, honest person wants to claim the TDS deducted. You cannot claim under this form, my dear friends. You forget this. You go under 154, look at all other alternatives, but you cannot file an updated return. Then a person who has been subject to search or survey for that specific year cannot file a return of income under 139(8)(a). So this updated return, the terminology is updated return. You cannot file an updated return under this. And people who are subject to search, no, usually 7 years are covered. It is the current year of search plus 6 years will be reopened for the previous years. Therefore, please note, it can go up to 10 years also if they want. So therefore, you can forget it. You cannot file 139(8)(a) if you are subject to search, my dear friends. You cannot file a return when it is already filed under this section. What does this mean? If I am filing a revised return, my dear friends, I can revise it how many ever times I want. I want to revise it twice, you can revise. 50 times you can revise. 100 times you can revise. 1000 times also you can revise. Legally you are allowed. Legally you are allowed to revise your return how many ever times. Notice may come, but the law is clear. But here what are they saying? The return is already filed under this section. You cannot once again file. That means you have one opportunity to file. Please file it correctly. You file a return. Then next day assessee comes. Sir, this income also I have. They may send me a notice. Can you file? Sorry, sir, you cannot file. Each year only one return allowed. And currently there is no option to revise, etc. So only one time allowed, one shot, one opportunity. Don't fail. So ensure that you do the same correctly. And finally, the most important point is when any proceedings have been initiated for that year in question, for the lapse of the time specified here, then forget it, you cannot file. That is natural. Let us assume I'm an assessee, I don't disclose the income. I say, we'll see, we will take care. Whenever I get a notice, I will see. So you have that attitude. What happens? You get the notice. Then what happens? Oh my God, notice has come. I'll file updated return. I'll pay whatever penalty under this. You cannot, because it's an afterthought. Once the assessment proceedings or reassessment proceedings have been initiated, you cannot file a return under section 139(8)(a), my dear friends. It is very, very clear. Now, for those who are not clear, I just wanted to explain that and the penalty amount. Because the penalty, that small fee, what was said, or small penalty, is actually 25% to 50% of the additional tax payable plus interest. Additional tax payable plus interest, 25% to 50%, my dear friends. You have to pay the tax also, you have to pay this penalty also. And what is the time? The same year we will take, the same dates we will take. So what they have said, up to 12 months from the end of the relevant assessment year, if you file a return under this section, then the penalty is at the rate of 25%. 12 months means financial year 2021-22 means it is assessment year 22-23. So it is 12 months from the end of the assessment. So it is 31st March 2024. So up to that date, if I file after the belated date of filing the return, that is after 31st of December 2022, then I have to pay a penalty of 25% on the additional tax plus interest. What if it is beyond 12 months? Up to 24 months means beyond 12 months up to 24 months, 50% penalty I have to pay. What if I want to file after 24 months? Sorry, sir, you cannot file. Up to 24 months only you have opportunity now. If you want to file beyond that also, you forget it, you cannot come. Now, one more very important question, because already 2-3 people have asked me in the chat box. I'll address this point. I'm an assessee who has an income of 2 lakh rupees. It is below the taxable exemption limit. It is below the file limit also. Only 2 lakh rupees. But I want to file my return. Can I file under this provision, my dear friends? The provision is clear. Even I can file, even though my income is only 2 lakhs, I can also file under this provision. But what penalty will I pay? 50% to 25% of the additional tax payable. In my case, no tax at all is payable. So what is the penalty amount? It is still the same calculation, 25% of additional tax payable. In my case, the additional tax payable 0, 25% of 0 is 0. So you don't have to pay any money, my dear friends. You can file the return under 139(8)(a). It will be really helpful. And now let me come to the critical point, because one person has asked me now why they brought this provision. What is the reason? I'll make it very clear. November of last year, that is 2 months back, many of you will be aware that there were 2 new forms introduced: taxpayer information summary, annual information statement. This is in addition to 26 AS. What came out there? My dear friends, practical example I'm giving you. What happened to in my own office? Certain clients been filing returns for so many years. Then suddenly, whatever bank accounts we have disclosed is all reflected. But there is one more bank account in the TIS. I asked the client, sir, do you have any bank account in IOB? No, sir, I don't have any bank account. I said, sir, but this is the account details. So much interest is there. Oh, yes, correct. I have this account. It's a very old account. I opened it 15 years back. So that means whether the taxpayer knows or not, now the income tax knows, my dear friends. They have so much information in hand, whether you are giving it or not. Earlier, assessee had to share the information, then they initiate action. Now everyone else, CDSL, NSDL, your banks, any sale of mutual funds, any sale of shares with the name of the shares, dividend income that you're getting, with the list of the dividend, what companies you're getting, everything is now available. Forget 26 years. This is more robust than that. So now department is empowered with so much information. And if you realize, when it first came out, my dear friends, you could only see it for the last 2 years. Now you can see up to assessment year 9-10 also what is the 26 years. Similarly, the TIS, AIS also will be rolled back, my dear friends. So before the department sends you notice, before they say you have sold a share, why you have not filed a return of income, why you have not disclosed capital gains, please ensure that you use this updated return and file a return. Because on the face of it, it does not seem very beneficial. I want a reduced tax. I want more refund. I want some kind of loss claim. None of these scenarios, I can file this return. And if I have to file, 25 to 50% penalty. What is it so beneficial? It is an opportunity given by the government to you to comply. So please, my dear friends, take this opportunity and comply. The next major change, I'm sure all of you must have read it. Every newspaper has flashed this everywhere. Taxation of virtual digital assets. So cryptocurrency taxation has come into effect. So if you sell any bitcoins, NFT, any other cryptocurrency you have, it will be taxed at a flat rate of 30%, my dear friends. Further, they have said no benefit of any expenses will be allowed other than the cost of acquisition. I take a loan to buy cryptocurrencies. I cannot claim the same as an expense. I take a loan to buy a house. I can claim that the interest paid under section 24B in house property income. If I take a loan or if I'm paying interest to earn some other income that I'm showing under other sources, I have deduction under section 57. Any expenses incurred directly attributable to earning that income, I can claim that as an expense. If I have in business profession, I can show it there. In capital gains, I can show as expenses in connection with the transfer, or I can show in cost of acquisition improvement. Under cryptocurrency, any expenses incurred, you forget it, we don't care. Only cost of acquisition you can set off. Then what happens? I say, anyway, huge loss I have. What do? I have other income. I will set off that loss. You all know cryptocurrency, very volatile. So I incur huge losses. So I say, okay, I'll set it off against my other income. Wait, sir, you cannot set off also. Forget set off. You cannot set it off against any other income. Oh my God, I cannot. Okay, anyway, next year I will sell bitcoins. I'll make huge profit. I will set off the loss against that. Wait a second. No carry forward also. No set off. No carry forward also. It is a dead loss. If you have profit, we will tax at 30% highest rate. If you have loss, forget it, sir. It's no use to you. Highly draconian provision. I don't know why they are bringing provisions like this. You want to tax the profit, tax it. But loss, why you are saying you cannot be claimed? I think it's highly unfair. And then in an interview, I think the post-budget conference, somebody asked the Ministry of Finance, they asked, are you saying that crypto is legal? Because now you have said how to tax it. I think somebody answered, I don't know who it was, but somebody answered saying, just because I have brought the tax to it does not make it legal. Then what they're saying, whenever you are murdering somebody or you're taking money and you're spending their money, are you showing it as income? Are they saying it will be taxed at this rate? Or are they saying it is allowed? Now they have specified in this specific case that no expenses allowed. So if I'm showing a knife and I'm stealing the wallet, then that knife I can claim as my fixed asset. I can take depreciation on it. I can expense that travel cost. I had to travel all the way. I had to get the clothes. I had to get a mask. That is my expenses. Can I claim all this as expense and say that that is my income? No, it doesn't have to be justified. If it is illegal, it is straight away illegal. It will be taxed under section 68, 69. That is how it should be done. So it's very absurd questions are being answered now in these sort of aspects. Reduction in litigation, I think Niranjan ji will cover that. I just want to touch upon this briefly because I think Niranjan ji also may touch upon this matter, which is the cess and surcharge tax. My dear friends, you see, your income tax, when you're calculating your profit, taxable profit from your business, then in those cases, your taxable profit is ascertained only after you add back the income tax paid or payable, my dear friends. And you will be taxable on the higher profit after adding this back. Now the question came up, what about that higher educational cess? Health cess was there. Now you have, health cess is there. Now earlier you had higher educational cess. What about that? Now, there was a CBDT circular which interestingly said, cess can be allowed. Cess can be allowed. Now the department or the government have come and said that cess is actually a surcharge. We have simply called it name cess, but actually it is surcharge in nature. There is a Supreme Court decision saying surcharge cannot be allowed. So therefore, automatically that means this is a surcharge. Why you called cess? It is simply one name, but actually it is surcharge. So therefore you should not allow it. Okay, fine. Next year, I will be careful. But wait a second. Vodafone flashbacks, blood is coming. What they are saying, all the way it's a retrospective amendment applicable from 2005. Highly unfair, my dear friends, because now our friends at the income tax department will reopen. They will reopen these cases. Last year, change brought for employees' contribution to PF ESI, similar conditions. They said it's a clarificatory in nature, but courts have held it is prospective in nature. So, but department still sending notices. So many reopening notices, so many additions being made on that same point. And every time we have to go on appeal. And now they are doing the same thing for cess and higher educational cess, my dear friends. I think Mr. Niranjan will discuss this matter maybe in a little bit more detail, but I think it's highly, highly unfair. And CBDT chief, when he was interacted on this, he said it will get huge revenue benefits. Sir, I'm planning the tax based on current law. 10 years later, you can't change and say I will get huge benefits if I make the change. Seems to be very, very unfortunate and unfair. 14A confusion. Again, I think it's a litigation. Niranjan ji, I'm sure will cover on this. It's a very, very funny amendment. And when this is an excerpt from the memorandum, he will cover. But when I read this, it's last 7 days I have presented around 10 budget sessions. 10 times I have read it, still I have not understood what they're trying to say. So this is the state of some of these amendments made. Faceless assessment, once again, it's a litigation matter. Whatever is not favorable to the government, they brought a provision which was very good procedurally. That provision, based on that provision, we went to High Court, Supreme Court, we got a lot of favorable judgments. So government, what they did, they made the procedure more robust by removing that provision, saying now you cannot go to High Court. No, like that they have brought a provision. So again, Niranjan ji will touch upon this. It's a litigation matter. I'm not going to touch upon some matters because they will not impact too many people or their general amendments. I will share the presentation so people can go through it at their ease. This one I will touch upon, which is donation to research institutions. You have approved institutions like IITs and other research institutions, which have got approval from the department, based on which what donation you give under section 35, earlier weighted deduction, now it is restricted to 100%. These donations you can claim when you're calculating your business profession, etc. The government said, they have said that a person who normally, the research institution who gets this donation, they are mandated by law to file a form of donors. They have to put a list of donors with their details. They have to file. This provision still remains, but now government have come and said, if they don't file the form, then the donor will not get a deduction. What? It's crazy. I am donating based on the approval that you have given. Department has given the approval to them. I don't have control whether they file the form or not. Then 6 months later, they don't file the form. You are denying my deduction. Can I go to IIT and say, why you are not filed? Come, I will file it for you. Come, you sit in front of the computer, you log in and give me. I cannot. A donor has no control over their action. Now you are saying donor does not get the deduction because they don't file. Once again, impossibility of compliance. I don't know why these kind of provisions are being brought about. Very impractical. Relief is there in COVID. 194R, the new provision. And now TDS, any person receiving any payment or in excess of 20,000 in a financial year has to deduct TDS at the rate of 10%, or rather the person who's paying has to deduct TDS at the rate of 10%. Now, why they are doing this is because the person receiving them are not filing the return. They are doing this to widen the taxpayer base. I'm not completely agreeing with, but at least I understand why they are making the change. Of course, finally, there are changes in charitable trusts, but it's a 3-hour session by itself. So I'm not going to go in detail with this. They've made it much more stringent. 1023C provisions are now been made applicable to 12A and 12AB also. And many more penalties have been introduced. So with this, we have reached the end of the presentation. Sorry, I had to rush because I am also excited to listen to Niranjan ji and the other speakers. So I'm sure they'll be very, very insightful. And I want to give them the due time that they need to touch upon these matters. So thank you very much for a patient listening. Over to the organizers.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful presentation and excellent analysis of union budget in respect to changes made in direct taxes, age, and its impacts on various sectors. Thank you, sir. Now I would request CMA Amit Kumar Sarkar, sir, Senior Director, Partner, MS, Messrs. Deloitte Hopkins and Shell LLP. Sir, kindly address.
Good evening, Shaktiधर ji. Can you just confirm if you can see my screen, my presentation on the screen?
Yes, sir. It is coming, sir. It is coming.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Good evening, and to all the dignitaries in the deliberations today, my fellow speakers, Honorable MP, Professor Mishra, C. Abhishek Murli from Chennai, and Niranjan Swaiji. Niranjan Mishra ji, thank you very much for this opportunity once again. So I do not know whether I'll be able to match the presentation of Abhishek ji, because he did an excellent presentation in terms of not only the content that he covered, but also the graphics of Bollywood and Tollywood movies that we see on the screen. What I will touch upon are the changes in the Goods and Services Tax and the Customs Act done by the Union government. So let me start with the Goods and Services Tax first. Now, if all of us have heard the budget speech, we saw that there was no announcements made by the Finance Minister during her budget speech about GST. So one would have thought that no changes in GST law, as was expected also, because after introduction of GST, the GST Council is the supreme decision-making body about all GST provisions, law, rates, etc. Consequently, it was also a kind of a logical conclusion when the Finance Minister did not touch upon a single word apart from the GST collection numbers in a budget speech. But when the fine print came, we were surprised that it had a significant amount of literature about changes in the GST law. So while the Finance Minister mentioned that January 22 saw the highest collections from GST since introduction of this tax of 1,40,000 crores, what was also important to note that the change, and Finance Minister alluded to the fact that it was on account of the economic revival and the economic buoyancy. But I believe personally that this was also attributed to the discipline brought about by the government in the last 2 years in various aspects of maintenance of GST, whether it is compliance or input tax credit. And consequently, the first change which I would like to touch upon is about the changes in the input tax credit provisions. Now, we all knew that the input tax credit mechanism is a two-way mechanism of between the recipient and the supplier. Now, that has undergone a change over a period of time in the last couple of years specifically. And this year, the budget changes which have happened, starting from section 16 till section 41, with an introduction of a newly substituted section 38. These, according to me, again, are significant changes in terms of deviating from the self-assessed tax provision to a recommended tax credit position. And I'll tell you why I say that. If you go back to the excise regime and also the service tax regime, the SSC could take the credits on the basis of tax invoices and the supplies received from their various vendors. Once GST came, then came a mechanism of matching the invoices and the supplies and the reportings made by the suppliers on the GST website, and thereafter I could take the credit. After that, the government introduced that for unmatched credits, we could take only a certain proportion of those invoices or those supplies. First, it started with 10%, and then it came down to 5%. Now, with January 22, we have got a statement called GSTR 2B, which is the auto-generated credit statement, and that has been made mandatory for a person or a taxpayer to determine his eligible credit. Therefore, the matching today is not with GSTR 2A, it is with GSTR 2B, and consequently, we are supposed to look at our purchase register vis-a-vis the GSTR 2B reported by our suppliers. But the changes in the Union budget in the GST law seems to make this even more stringent. And the reason for that, the GSTR 2B statement comes from section 38, and section 38 now comes with a set of restrictions, and therefore we will see two categories of credits in the GSTR 2B. One that would be eligible, the other would be ineligible. And how would the ineligible credits be determined? By the way of the restrictions that you see on this left-hand side of the screen. That if the supplier's compliance status, which will be determined by the GSTN portal and the data analytics which the government is employing, wherein the liability reported by the GST the taxpayer, whether it is in terms of GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B, or it is in respect of the credit availed by him, or it is in respect of the proportion of credit that he has paid or the proportion of tax that he has paid in his GST return. That's going to be the criteria for determining the ineligible credits also. Now, this makes the entire system a very dynamic system. It's not going to be a static statement anymore. It's going to be a dynamic statement. And therefore, I personally again believe that any taxpayer would need to refresh and review once the fine print of the rules come, the budget is passed by the parliament, and lay down or maybe relay down the process of input tax credit from time to in the coming days. It's not going to be the same old process that you can lay down for GST input tax credits after the passing of the budget, and also the passing of the introduction of the rules which are going to come post the budget being passed by the parliament. The second set of amendment is again for input tax credit. Now that in itself seemed to be a welcome move, but if you look a little detail in terms of the provision, may not be a euphoria which was expected. That is about the time limit which is for availment of input tax credit. The provisions right from the beginning of input tax GST said that we could take the credit for the previous financial year up to September of the next financial year. However, this has now been increased by a couple of months. Now I'll tell you why the euphoria is not about a couple of months, because the date for taking this rate up is up to 30th of November, right? Now, when this was asked in one of the webinars conducted by the CBIC after the budget, it was mentioned by one of the CBIC officials that this is going to be the 30th November date should consider all the returns filed by 30th of November. Now, practically speaking, by 30th of November, we will be filing these returns only for the month of October and not for the month of November. Therefore, is it a 2-month extension? Is a question which we should ask ourselves. So we are expecting a circular or a clarification to that extent, but going by that response that I just mentioned to you, it may not be a couple of months or 2 months extension. It's going to be effectively a 1-month extension. That means we could take the credits until the month of October's return, vis-a-vis the situation now, which is for September of the next financial year. I think the next one, which is about time limit for issuance of credit note, is a welcome move. Here, you actually can get a 2-month benefit of issuing credit notes for the previous financial year by 2 months till 30th of November of the next financial year. The next is, I think, a draconian provision linked to Section 38 and the other changes in the input tax provisions. And why? Because it says that if a SSC is taking self-assessed input tax state credit and that invoice becomes ineligible because of non-payment of tax by the vendor or the supplier, the SSC who has taken the credit would be required to reverse that credit along with interest, and he or she can re-avail the credit once the supplier makes the payment to the government. Question number 1, the communication from the government that the tax has not been paid or the tax has been paid would need to be seen how that's going to take place and effectively take place. Because remember, this also gives rise to questions. How would I record for this change? How would I record for these transactions? How would I track these transactions? And how would I keep a tab that I can reverse as well as re-avail the credits for these invoices? Second is about the interest. Section 50 subsection 3, which has also been amended this time, and you would know that in the GST Council meetings in the previous year, in the previous sessions, it was agreed that interest on ineligible credit would be required to be paid only when the ineligible credit was availed and utilized by the taxpayer. And that has been incorporated now by amending Section 53. That means I would be required to pay interest only when I would have utilized the ineligible credit as determined by me or by the tax authorities. Here, this section, which is Section 41 subsection 2, it specifically says that if the supplier does not pay the tax to the government, I'll have to reverse the credit along with interest. According to me, this is in contradiction of Section 50 subsection 3, and this in the future days may need to be clarified by the government. Let me move on to the next changes, where I will not take too much of time because these are more of procedural changes, but here also the devil lies in the detail. For example, cancellation of Gst registration. I will talk about normal taxpayers and not composition taxpayers over here. This also has to be read in conjunction of Rule 21A, which was introduced recently in the CGST rules, where the government has laid down various parameters by virtue of which the taxpayer's registration may be suspended. And mind you, the Rule 21A also is a very serious provision where the taxpayer's registration can be suspended even before issuing a notice to the taxpayer. It is first the suspension followed by the notice. So that is a very important deviation, as we normally see in all tax litigations, where the show cause notice comes first and then the action is taken. But here in this case, if there can be cancellation of registration of normal taxpayers, where if the taxpayer has not paid tax for a continuous tax period, and that tax period, how many months? It was earlier 6 months, which has been replaced, and this will be notified by the government from time to time, which also indicates that it will come in the form of notifications or changes in the rules. Electronic cash ledger. Now, electronic cash ledger as is just, you can say, a cash pool which is used for payment of GST, which the taxpayer can deposit, or it can also get credited by the GST TDS, which is collected, which is deducted by government agencies and PSUs from normal suppliers when they receive supplies from those supplies. Now, this electronic cash ledger, if it is lying idle because you either have a stoppage in business, a temporary stoppage in business, or for any other reason, and you have multiple registrations in India, you can move the cash lying idle from the state where it is lying idle to another state where you need that cash, right? So this is again, this is a good move. This is a welcome move. This was already decided in the GST Council meetings, and this has been ratified by a change in the law. On procedural change for GST refund, a very important step was for SEZ related refunds. Now, if I supply goods to a SEZ place unit or a developer, I do not receive an FIRC. I do not issue, or I do not need to generate a shipping bill, right? Now, supplies to SEZs are zero data supplies. And those supplies, if I have to claim a refund of the GST paid or the input tax rate in relation to those supplies, the relevant date is 2 years from the date of filing the shipping bill or the date of receipt of the FIRs. That was the provision in the law. As I said, for SEZ supplies, I do not have a FIRC, neither do I have a shipping bill. So how do I determine the 2-year period? That has been made a different event over here, which says that for SEZ supplies, I have to calculate the 2-year period from the date of filing the relevant return into which those supplies have been reported, which means effectively your GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B, in whichever month you have filed that, you reported the transaction of SEZ supply, from that date, the 2-year period will start. GST returns, again, this is again procedural. I will not, I'll just take a minute over here where if one does not file GST returns, GSTR 1 returns for the previous months, he won't be able to file the returns for the future period. This is again to plug inefficiencies and non-compliances, and therefore this is a welcome move again. Let me quickly go to customs. In case of customs, a very important change has taken place in the GST, in the customs definitions of proper officers. Now one would wonder, why did this not happen earlier? It took such a long period and a Supreme Court decision to held that DRI officers, Directorate of Revenue General Vigilance officers, are not proper officers of customs to issue show cause notices. So Canon India challenged this before the Supreme Court, and where they said, or it was argued that DRI officers are not empowered to issue show cause notices and initiate recovery proceedings. And Supreme Court agreed with that argument, and that sent a lot of worries and anxious moments in the government circles, because there were a host of litigation going on by virtue of DRI notices. And imagine how much money would have been recovered in the past by way of DRI notices. But it was this decision which actually overturned a settled kind of a practice where DRI officers were initiating recovery proceedings. So that has been set right now by amending the proper officer definition, where DRI officers, preventive officers of customs, and audit officers of customs can issue show cause notices and adjudicate those show cause notices. In addition to that, the previous actions of DRI has been sought to be validated by amendment in the law. Consequently, this can also lead to additional litigation for those appeals or those litigation matters where taxpayers have challenged the validity of DRI of issuing show cause notices. Now, GST, as we know, is a completely electronically driven taxation system, and the CBIC is taking giant leaps in the other area of customs, of making that even customs, to make customs very again a transparent and electronically compliant system. In that direction, this amendment of IGCR, which I say, IGCR is nothing but import of goods at concessional rates, wherein importers taking benefit of customs duties or exemptions they are required to comply with a set of provisions of filing declarations, seeking permissions, reporting the consumptions of the imported goods which are imported at concessional duties. Now, these until now have been completely manual process, and that also caused a lot of interaction between the taxpayers and the tax authorities, leading to inefficiency in the process. This is sought to be completely made electronic by March 22, and therefore this is a very good move by the government to make it a faceless kind of a system, which is also the kind of faceless assessment that we see for normal customs clearances. A host of duty concessions or exemptions are sought to be withdrawn, specifically in line with the fact that either they have become redundant with the passage of time, or the domestic industry has sought protection in respect of those imports because India is growing in those areas, and the domestic manufacturers need support from the government in order to make the imports competitive to the domestic industry and not give them any unfair advantages. Secondly, the government also wanted to promote certain sectors like textiles and chemicals, which are part of the various PLI schemes, as you know, and therefore a lot of impetus has been given in respect of imports of not only imports but capital goods, which are there for these sectors. So I will not get into the tariff into too much of detail. I will be happy to take any specific questions later on. But overall, for all customs clearances, we have to keep two things in mind. The entire customs tariff is undergoing rapid change, and therefore any importer would need to keep track of that. Two, classification of goods also have undergone a rapid significant change because the Customs Tariff Act has been amended by HSN 22 from 1st Jan 22, and therefore one will need to pay attention over there. Project imports. Now we know that project imports give a single classification system and also a reduced rate of tax for certain categories of imports related to infrastructure or large projects. Now the advantage of project import is you may need 1,000 items for a particular project, but you could classify them under a single classification of project imports and pay a significantly reduced duty of 1%, 2.5%, as the case may be, depending on the nature of the project. Now that is sought to be revised by increasing the or taking away the BCD component from the lower rate to the higher rate of 7.5%. So all project-related imports from September 2022, or rather after September 22, would not be enjoying this benefit. All the projects which have been registered till September 22 would be enjoying the reduced tax of less than 7.5% till September 2023. But from October 2023, all project imports would be taxed at 7.5%. So, in summary, new projects registered after October 22, 7.5%. Projects registered up to September 22 would be enjoying the reduced benefit till September 23. And from October 23, all project import items would be taxed at 7.5%. Now, that does not take away the sheen from this project import benefit, because you still have a single entry classification, which is a very good classification because a project can entail thousands of items, and therefore you need not look at the individual classification and duty rate of those items, and it gives you a simple clearance system. Two important changes again, rather not announcements again. One is the social welfare surcharge, where social welfare surcharge is applicable on imports. But what happened in case of BCD and IGST exemption, customs authorities were asking for social welfare surcharge because that was not specifically exempted. The Supreme Court also held and agreed with the authorities that in the absence of an exemption of social welfare surcharge, even though the BCD and the IGST were exempted, an importer was required to pay social welfare surcharge on those imports as well. But now the government has clarified that if the goods are exempted from BCD, basic customs duty, and IGST, they would not be required to pay social welfare surcharge as well. Two very welcome announcements is in respect of the special economic zone that we know, SEZ. Now the SEZ Act came in 2005. Over a period of time, it has become unattractive on account of various reasons. From a taxation standpoint, it became unattractive because the income tax benefits were hit a sunset clause. From a process standpoint, the processes of AGZ Act became archaic and could not live up to the changing dimensions of business. Therefore, it has been a long-standing demand of the industry to look into the SEZ provisions. Even infrastructure deficiencies were a lot to be seen into. Therefore, the government has decided to replace the SEZ Act with a new registration, and they're also looking at including the state government parks like the Odisha Industrial Development. In your case, we have Maharashtra Industrial Development in your case. All those enclaves, industrial enclaves, could also be part of the SEZ Act, and that's the thinking of the government. We have to wait and watch for the new law to draft of the new law to be seen. And lastly, SEZ compliances are going to be IT driven. Till now, all the compliances of SEZ are done on a specific portal processes that are online, and there are a lot of inefficiencies in that process. It is not integrated with the customs online port on the customs system of ISGate, and that is something which the government is doing from September 22. So all the SEZ clearances of import, declaration filing, and any other return filings of SEZ are going to be through a single platform of the customs portal of CBIC. So two final points from my side. One, we did not see a direct, I saw a question somewhere in the chat box. We did not see a directional movement of the government towards rationalization of GST rates. Professor Mishra mentioned that GST is a regressive tax. Yes, indeed, it's a regressive tax. So therefore, in spite of buoyant tax collections, we also need to think about rationalization of GST rates, which was expected at least directionally, because the government had already formed a GST rate reduction committee, which is yet to submit its recommendations, and we did not see a direct announcement on that side. Even the second is about making the administrative process of GST. A GST appellate tribunal, faster resolution of GST, standardizing the amendment processes or the adjudication processes. That is something which was expected, at least again directionally, which we didn't see in the budget announcements. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you for your patiently listening, and also I'm very happy that I'm being part of this Bhubaneswar chapters initiative. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your wonderful presentation and deliberation on changes made in indirect taxes, specifically in GST and custom. Now I would request CMA Niranjan to address again.
Respected Honorable MP, Mr. Mahtab, respected our President, Mr. Raju Iyer, respected Central Council Member, Mr. Mishra, Regional Council Member, Mr. BP Naik, Mr. Uttam Naik, in their absence, Dr. S.N. Mishra, Mr. Amit Sarkar, and Dr. Murali, respected all the office bearers, senior members. Thank you very much for giving some opportunity to share my views, thoughts related to the litigation matter of the budget proposals. Friends, before going for the discussion, just I wanted to convey that the government has taken the finance minister, while making the presentation of the budget, he has taken two views, particularly related to litigation. One is many of the changes has been incorporated either prospectively or retrospectively to come out of the decision of the different judiciary authorities. And the second one is more thrust has been given to make the process easy. Particularly, I'm talking about the assessment, reassessment, the procedure or the scheme to be framed in case of dispute resolution panel, different schemes they proposed, the faceless assessment appeal some modifications, and particularly the new faceless assessment scheme that has been proposed in case of IT, Income Tax Appellate Tribunal cases. And a few of the points I wanted to touch upon that. Coming to the first, I am thankful to Dr. Murali. He has expressed some of the views on particularly the cases where the cess and surcharge has been treated as allowable expenses, which categorically now made it legally that these are not cess, these are nothing, this is the part of the taxes. And since that restriction has been contained under section 40 and subsection 2A for the computation of income, and that is a disallowable expenses, so the expenses cannot be no more allowed. But just before discussion of this point, I wanted to tell you that while the government is imposing both under direct tax, indirect tax, in addition to the taxes, and has been collected, and the issue was whether these are part of the income tax or not. And section 40 is a restricted section while computing the income from business or profession, and whatever items has been categorically specified under section 40, and one of the item under section 40A subclause 2, that is the income tax, is not treated as a business expenses, even if it is reduced the profit in the profit and loss statement, but that cannot be treated. That's why it is added back in the computation. So issue was there if the income tax categorically specified in the section 40 and added in the computation of income, whether cess and surcharge to be allowed or not. And categorically, I am referring to two decisions where Honorable Bombay High Court in case of Sesa Limited versus Joint Commission of Income Tax, and Rajasthan High Court in case of Chambal Fertilizer and Chemicals, they have hold that the cess and surcharge are not part of the income tax. These are the cess surcharge is nothing but a business expenditure to be treated as expenditure in the computation of income. But subsequently, the Calcutta High Court, particularly in case of I think Kanoria Chemicals and Industries Limited, the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal Calcutta made a distinction between the cases which referred by the Bombay High Court and Rajasthan High Court, and Honorable Calcutta High Court, Calcutta Tribunal has referred to the decision of the Supreme Court, that is the Commission of Income Tax versus K. Srinivasan, and in which it was held that cess and surcharge is nothing but it is a part of the income tax. And they categorically made their finding that while the Rajasthan High Court and Bombay High Court has took the decision on these two cases, they have overlooked the decision of the Honorable Supreme Court. That's why the decision has come that it is a business expenditure. So in their view, it was treated as a part of the income tax, and accordingly it was disallowed. So this has brought to the effect by way of amendment in the proposed bill in the section, and the Finance Bill 2022 categorically incorporated that these are part of the income tax and these are disallowable expenses. Friends, what is the impact on that? First point is the impact is it is made a retrospectively amendment from 2005-6. So that means the cases which are pending at different levels, starting from the Commission of Income Tax Appeals, Tribunal, High Court, and Supreme Court, now on basis of this amendment made retrospectively from 2005-6, now it will be treated as a disallowed expenses, and accordingly, not only the tax will come, but also interest will come. I am referring one of the decision of the government, actually, when the Vodafone case has come, and subsequently, I think Clarion Energy case has come, and they went to Bombay High Court, then ultimately Supreme Court, and Supreme Court hold that the indirect transfer of asset is not treated as a capital gain for computation of capital gain, and there is no tax liability, and that is a huge tax liability. You may be aware that the tax liability plus 12,000 tax liability plus interest component around 6,000 crores, so 18,000, 17,000, 18,000 crores, particularly one case. Subsequently, Vedanta case has also come. So government in 2021 come out with a bill, that is the Taxation Laws Amendment Bill 2021. It was placed before the Houses of Parliament, and subsequently it was got the assent of the President, and accordingly the amendment made that prior to 2012, whatever indirect tax, indirect asset transfer has been made, and accordingly the capital gain was treated as a taxable. Because of the decision of the Honorable Supreme Court, now no tax demand will be in existence. So the amendment already they made it. If that principle they adopted, and they themselves told that this is no tax and demand, interest, etc. will be collected. And in this particular case, and they made it very clear that it is just an amendment, so it is no doubt have the additional cost. The second point is it has effect that there may be the cases where the appeal has not been preferred by the department because of the you may be aware that there is a threshold limit has been prescribed, that in case the assessee succeeded in the cases exceeding certain amount, particularly 50 lakhs, 1 crore and 2 crores, in the case of decision in the tribunal and High Court and Supreme Court, whatever cases was pending, it was withdrawn by the department some years back, 2 years back, I think, and by way of a notification. And subsequently, number of cases has been withdrawn where the department filed the application on the ground of a threshold limit. Now, question is the cases where the department all the cases are not pending because the 3 years is available for reassessment. The assessee may expect that notices may be issued for the reassessment in this case because of the retrospective amendment. So it has a no doubt about it will be put the many assessees in the trouble, and additional cost and interest will come, and one cannot avoid the interest. The reason is I am referring one of the judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court, particularly in case of Pratibha Processors versus Union of India, which is mostly subsequently followed by not only Supreme Court but also other subordinate courts. So where it was held that particularly tax, interest and penalty, and they made a distinction, what is the tax, what is the interest, what is the penalty. Particularly in the case of interest, it has been held that it is a compensatory nature and no circumstances it is going to be waived. So interest is a compensatory nature. When there is a tax demand, interest has to be there and interest has to be collected. And by this, by making, no doubt about it, litigation has reduced, but amendments should have been made with effect from the present year onwards, not that from 2005-06. Rather, it is creating a Pandora box, and many of the assessees will come to the further litigation. And the second point is, friends, you have seen, just I'm giving you, when the Vivades Vishwas scheme was introduced, and the government predicted, government made an analysis, and they came to conclusion that, to my understanding, that a huge number of cases are pending at a different level. They have taken up to 31st March 2019, because the scheme has come in 2019, but it could not be succeeded to that extent what the government was expecting. And more than 9 lakhs crores of revenue was plugged because of these disputes. And 3,41,000 number of disputes was CIT appeal. And income tax appellate authority, the pending cases was more than 92,000 cases. High Court was more than 43,000 cases, and Supreme Court was more than 6,000 crores, 6,100 or 200 cases. So these total cases, if you talk about the disputed value, excluding the interest I am talking, it was 9 lakhs crores. That's why Vivades Vishwas scheme they came out. And subsequently, government thought that many of the demands may not be in a position to collect because of, you know, that the department, how the demand is raised by the departmental officers. That's why they came out for the Vivades Vishwas scheme. Because of a certain reason, because of COVID, it could not be made successful to my understanding. So to avoid this, they gain that experience, and many more changes they also incorporated to overcome the disputes. I'm referring one of the cases, section 43B, you may refer, where the provision talks about that if any interest is payable to the any financial institutions, banks, non-banking financial institutions, actually 3 clauses are there. Whatever the interest is paid, if it is not paid, then it will not be treated as allowable expenses. So on 31st March, if it is payable, you have to make the payment before due date of filing return to get the tax benefit on the basis of that payment. And the question is, many cases you have seen the interest is converted to the loan. The interest is converted to a debenture. So question was before the different adjudicating authorities that whether that interest which is due on the loan or the borrowed capital taken by the company utilized in the business, and because they are not in a position to make the payment of the interest, that's why they converted it to the debentures or the further loans, and that conversion will be treated as a payment, and accordingly the tax benefit is available. Or in case of MMA Aqua Technologies Limited, where the Honorable Supreme Court hold that any interest has been converted to the debentures, that is also treated as a payment, and accordingly the tax benefit is available. So now, to overcome that particular issue and a similar issues whatever pending, the amendment has been made, and it made it very clear that the amount to, if it is by way of a conversion, if any interest is converted to the loan, further loan or further interest, that cannot be treated as a payment, and under 43B, by due date of payment, whatever provision is there is applicable. So now it is not applicable. Thereby, now question is, because of this provision, anyhow, this provision is made prospectively by Finance Act 2022 onwards. It is applicable after getting the assent of the both the houses and the president. But this amendment is made to come out to overrule the decision of the Honorable Supreme Court. The third, another point, just I'm referring section 37, and they now made it very clear. Section 37, they made it very clear. You know, section 37 is residuary section. And one of the clause of the section, one of the explanation, as I remember to the section, is that if the expenditure incurred by the assessee is due to penalty or is illegal expenses, particularly, I'm not talking about the illegal business. I'm talking about legal business you are doing, but the interest, the expenses you incurred, which is not legally permissible. So in that case, certain taxpayers were claiming the deduction of expenses incurred for the purpose which they incurred because they violated or it is an offense under any law. There are 2 points here I will discuss. One of the first point is, if you incur certain expenditure because of offense under any law of a foreign country, that was treated as a business expenditure. But if any expenditure you incurred that is an offense of own country, that means in India, then that was treated as a disallowed expenditure. So now they incorporated that whether the payment made for on account of any offense of any law, whether it's foreign law or Indian law, both cases it will be treated as a disallowed expenses. The second point is, another point they included, and again I'm telling that a lot of debates has been taken by different high courts and different tribunals. The decisions are many cases it was that the expenditure is allowable, many cases this expenditure is not allowable. So I'm referring actually the game started from the circular issued by the Indian Medical Association. You know that in the Indian Medical Association, they have issued a circular. They directed all the doctors, those are members of the association, that nobody will accept any gift or any perquisite or any benefit from the medicine distribution companies. And if they received it, then that will be treated as illegal. And accordingly, what happens? The department went on disallowing the expenses what incurred by the medical companies, pharmaceutical companies. They incurred for the giving the gift to the medical to the doctors. So what happens? Many of the assessees, they went to different high courts and Supreme Court. Anyhow, to my knowledge, there is no Supreme Court decisions are there. They went to the High Court and different tribunals, and there are divergent views of the different tribunals and high courts. So many of the high courts of the opinion that this is not an offense under any law, so it is allowable expenses. Many of the high courts of the opinion that no, since the medical association has banned it and put it that this will not be acceptable, so it is also not treated as a business expenditure. Now what happens? They put an end. They made the amendment that if any expenditure incurred by the assessee company, because it is restricted by way of any circular or any direction given by any other body, then that expenditure also treated as a disallowed expenditure under section 37(1). So that means now medical association already issued the circular direction given to all the doctors that whatever amount they are getting as a gift or any other mode from the pharmaceutical company is not should not be acceptable. It is illegal, and in that case, the companies will not get the tax benefits. So this principle is not applicable only to the pharmaceutical company. It is applicable to any of the assessee, those who are giving the gift, those who are incurring the expenditure for the others, where there is the association has banned it or given a direction not to accept. So in that case, these are not treated as a business expenditure. And it has a huge impact. Actually, this expenditure you might have seen in pharmaceutical company, particularly I'm talking, and a huge expenditure has been spent for that purpose. And according to the tax, it was treated as a business expenditure, and automatically the tax liability of the company was reduced, and tax benefit is enjoyed by them. Now it has been withdrawn. The next point I wanted to discuss particularly in case of, you know that there is one section 144 C. So what is the 144C? After filing the return of income, the department issued the notice under 143(2) or 142(1) for the filing the return or going for the assessment. And any assessee, particularly any assessee, those who are which is a foreign company, or the assessee, those who are having the transfer pricing provisions is applicable. So in that case, the assessing officer will prepare a draft assessment order, and that draft assessment order, if there is a variation of income in comparison to the return filed, then they will issue to the assessee and to get a confirmation. It is only applicable in case of foreign companies, those who are having the international transaction, and it is applicable to the Indian companies, those who are coming under the transfer pricing provisions. So in that case, the assessing officer will not pass the order to reduce the litigation. This provision was introduced long back, I remember 2009 perhaps, and subsequently when the assessing officer issued the this draft order, the assessee has two options. One option is can accept the variation of income and pay the additional taxes, and accordingly the assessment can be closed, or they can approach to a DRP, Dispute Resolution Panel. Dispute Resolution Panel consists of principal commissioner, or the any two members. They constitute the DRP. The DRP will issue the notice to the assessee. After hearing from the assessee, they will take a decision and they will give the direction to the assessing officer to complete the assessment. So now what happens? That is, the amendment has been made that 144 of the Act empowers the central government to notify a scheme for the purpose of issuance of a direction by the Dispute Resolution Panel. So what is the why they are very much interested for the scheme? Friends, if you see this budget, the government proposed many cases to have the different schemes. So once the scheme is made, so that means anybody in the process, those who are have to implement the scheme, they will be guided by that scheme. So that's why this scheme they have proposed, and it is also proposed to amend the subclause 14C of the 114C, extending the date of issuing the direction for the purpose of this subsection. Actually, it was fixed that within 1 year the scheme has to come, but they extended it to 2024. And another important point I wanted to tell you, which Dr. Murali has already told to you, just I wanted to give a feel. When the government initially wanted to have a robust scheme, and which they could not implement in the proper way because of technical glitches in the portal, in addition to the principle of a the fundamental principle, generally the sufficient opportunity should be given to the assessee. It is the buzzword of any of the decision of the court, and without giving any opportunity, the assessment has been carried out. And that's why it became failure. Actually, I will tell you, it became failure. In case of appeal also, similar thing happens. Even if the assessment scheme became the faceless assessment scheme, subsequently the appeal scheme also became faceless appeal scheme. According to the department, only 56,000 cases appeal has only disposed. So in case of a particularly faceless assessment scheme, I'm just giving a brief. You know that the faceless e-assessment scheme has come out in the September 2019, which was subsequently renamed as faceless assessment scheme 2019. Subsequently, the faceless assessment scheme 2020 has come out in the August, and again in the 2021, the amendment has been made and the procedure has been adopted, and subsequently 144B, a new section was introduced to categorically specifying the process to be followed in the case of completing the starting from issue of the notices and ending with the completion of assessment. But we have witnessed the difficulty whatever felt by the assessee particularly, and in many cases the department could not in a position to complete the assessment. Even if it completed, unilaterally completed, and number of writs have been filed with different high courts, and almost all 100% cases the High Court has given that you completed the assessment without giving sufficient opportunity to the assessee, and this assessment is null and void. And actually many cases I am talking, it has become null and void. And I am just referring to a recent decision of the Delhi High Court in case of Bharat Aluminium Company case, recent in 2022, I think in the month of January perhaps it was published, and where the Honorable High Court has very categorically told that personal hearing is assessee's vested right and must be granted in faceless assessment. This is the one of the direction. The second one is no distinction can be made before the during the faceless assessment, whether it is a question of fact or the question of law. Friends, you know that the Commission of Income Tax Appeal and the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal both are the fact-finding authorities. And the moment it went to the case is put before the High Court, it is a question of law will arise, question of fact will not arise. So it is very important, particularly starting from the assessment, CIT appeal, then it is going to the ITIT. All the three cases, the fact finding is very important, have very importance in the process of assessment and process of appeal. So based upon that, when the number of strictures has been issued to the department that whatever the assessment you completed on the faceless assessment, it is null and void, and you have done it without issuing proper notices, without giving opportunity. Friends, we witnessed that the notices is coming when the date already expired. I have seen, I was dealing with many of the clients during last 1 year, particularly I'm talking about faceless assessment. We found these difficulties, and people could not get notices in the email also, and nobody is going to verify the portal that every day whether notice is coming or not. And even if you submitted the documents, the acknowledgement is not coming. So few of the cases related to this dispute related cases, I'm referring there, that's the proposal. A new section 144B has been totally amended. A new procedure has been introduced. And what is the impact? What is the changes has been made? That is very important. The first point is reduction in the number of process. If you see the old process, actually there is a draft order to be issued. This draft order, National Faceless Assessment Center can send to another assessment unit. They can verify it. If there is a variation, they can also refer to another. So many references are there. They reduce the references. So in extreme cases, only review will be made. Otherwise, the faceless assessment will be completed without reviewing by many of the assessment units. It has a disadvantage actually. One of the assessment unit is dealing the matter from the beginning. when it will go for the reboot to the other assessment unit, the other assessment unit does not know about the ABC of the entire fact of the cases. So it is very practical, difficult on their part to do. And second, language is a problem. I was come across one of the departmental officers. So during the discussion in a seminar, he expressed that there is a huge capital gain taxability is there, and according to the sale documents has been sought for, and all the sale documents are in the Tamil. So who can read these huge documents of the Tamil? So we engage a person to translate it, and the assessing officer relying upon the translation will go for the assessment. I'm giving one of the examples. So that's why the process they reduced faster. The second one is the new procedure proposes to issue the show cause notice and consider the reply filed by the taxpayer. Many cases, when there is a variation in the income and when there is a disallowance of expenses, no show cause notices has been issued to the assessee. The assessee is not aware about the fact. Assessment is completed. And we know that in the physical assessment, people have seen the past assessment order and disallowed. Okay, disallowed in the present assessment also. But the same thing also followed, to my understanding. So that's why they have not listened to the taxpayer. So now what happens? It is very clearly given in the amended provisions that because this leads to the litigation subsequently. If they will not give the opportunity, the assessee will definitely go to the High Court by way of a writ to exercise the fundamental right under Article 14 of the Constitution, and accordingly can get the relief. So that's why they made it that show cause notices has to be issued, and after hearing the show cause notice, they can go for the changes. The next one is the show cause notice before making any adjustment of the income. They cannot go for increase of the income without knowledge of the assessee. If I filed a return with certain income and there is a change in my income because of the disallowances or there is any variation, so they have to refer to me, and accordingly I have to go for. Another very important point is the two things. The personal hearing is not extended, and only in exceptional cases with the approval of the competent authorities to be extended. Now what happens? The personal hearing is become mandatory. If the assessee sought for the personal hearing, then the personal hearing will be extended through the video conferencing or video telephony process. They have to adopt it. They cannot deny it. So this is actually no doubt it is a welcome address. If there are a lot of allegations also there, the complaints are there also. When we are appearing before the adjudicating authorities, we appear before the different assessment authorities, assessing authorities. Even also whether the person concerned is present or not does not matter, because we may not in a position to see the faces in many cases also. So even also we went on arguing, and it may be recorded, and on that basis they can go for. So if the physical, even if the physical presence is not there, but the video conferencing is there, at least there may be interaction, and even also this will be extended without taking prior approval of the competent authority. So there is no prior approval process has been eliminated in the this section 144B provisions. But again, another very important point they made it that 144B surplus 9 of the Act described that if any assessment proceeding completed without following the process, whatever laid down in the section 144B, then that assessment is null and void. This clause they have omitted. So actually, we do not find that when the government is giving, the government is of the opinion that they are transparent and they are giving importance to the transparency. So how they are deleting this clause? 144B9 has been deleted, and which is a very important clause. If a single process has not been followed properly as per the old provision, not proposed provision, and this becomes null and void. So actually many of the courts have taken this particular clause. Accordingly, they have issued the direction that this order is null and void. Now this is proposed to be withdrawn and for the purpose. And many of the other issues are there which has not been addressed, even also the scheme. One is a unrealistic timeline. There is no timeline of issuing the notice and reply. Previously 15 days was there. Many cases they have not followed. 2 days, 1 day time was given. Previously, generally in the physical cases, 30 days earlier was given. Now in this 144B, The 15 days of issue of the notice in the first case was there, it was not there. It is given that as may be decided. So our expectation is there should be reasonable time should be given, at least 30 days to reply to the queries which they raise, going to raise under 143 two notices or subsequent any notices. And the important is the order passed without considering adjournment request. There is no provision of adjournment. Notice serving wrong email ID, that is the important point. They have to address it. Size of a limit of submission of document is only 5 MB. Friends, I'm telling, when we are going for the assessment, they are starting fast from the return copy. They are not downloading their return copy. They are asking me to have the return copy and tax audit reports, my financial statements, then subsequently a lot of vouchers, putting a very draconian notices. I will say as if they are instructing, you give the books of accounts. My books of accounts is not a small size to upload you. Many cases we are giving a reply that the books of accounts I maintain is a cash book, bank book, ledger and journals, huge in nature. Please give very specific requirement so that we will submit the copies. We cannot submit the voucher and other copies. Many of the notices has contained that. So these things has not been addressed. Taxpayer trying to file the response within the timeline, but the departmental website is not working. So these things they have to take into consideration. Otherwise, it will be very difficult to complete the assessment in the particular case. And another very important point, just one good point I will tell you. You know that when the reassessment, the provision has been amended, a new reassessment provision was introduced in substitute the old assessment provision 147 and the issue of notices under 148, and the process has to be followed under 148A, and timeline etc. has been fixed. So it is started from the provision started from 147 to 153 and contains a lot of provisions. But friends, if we go into deep the provisions, one of the provision is there that the reassessment notices cannot be issued after 31st March because the new section 147 and subsequent sections up to 153 has come into effect from 1st April 2021, and any reassessment related to the previous years, means up to 31st March 2021, it cannot be conducted under the new provision because this is has to be regulated through the old provision. So what the department did, department has made the amendments for the issue of the notices up to 30th June 2021. And friends, you might have seen many of the cases notices has been issued up to 30th June 2021 that your reassessment for the previous years has to be conducted. That means 2020-21, 19-20, 18-20, because that time it was 4 years and 6 years, and the notices has been issued. And when the notices have been issued, I also received some of the clients. So when they came, I told how they will do it. They have extended the provisions by allowing for the issue of the notice up to 30th June. But after the issue of the notices, when the document will be submitted, how the parties go, how the assessment is going to be completed, how the department is going to be completed. So department please department cannot go for conducting the reassessment process. That's why many of the writs were filed before high courts, and almost all high courts with a bunch of writs. I'm talking the last one for us 470 writs was disposed by the Delhi High Court, directing that they have no power to go for the reassessment after 1st April, on or after 1st April 2021. They might have issued the notices. So now what they propose in this bill, the no notices for reassessment under 147 will be issued related to the year assessment of previous year 2020-21 after 1st April 2021. So they made it very clear. So thereby the reassessment proceeding cannot be conducted for the previous years under the new provision. The second one, they made an amendment that one of the criteria is there, the reason to believe as per the old provision. One can, the assessing officer has to reason to believe that there is a escapement of income. This was the one of the precondition for going for the reassessment as per the old provision. But as per the new provision, that reason to believe provision is not there. So the provision is very clear that if the assessing officer have the information that certain income is escaped, certain income escaped means income has not been reported, or the higher expenditure has been reported, or the more been taken, that is also escapement of income. And the assessing officer, by giving a show cause notice, hearing from the assessee, can decide whether it is a fit case or not, take the approval, and accordingly can go for issuing the notices under section 148, and this procedure has to be carried out under 148A. This process is not required for the reassessment procedure, sorry, for the search and seizure cases. So these cases is not survey or search, or when the requisition is made for the documents for the under the search provisions 132A and 132. So in that case, this is not required. So what happens? What the changes they made? Because in case of Zicken drive shaft, a very clear guideline has been given what is reason to believe, what process to be followed by the assessing officer. These things is not applicable in the present case. So that's why, and what is the information is available. So they made it that two cases of information. One is if there is a audit objection given in respect of any of the assessee, and that is escapement of income, on the basis of audit assessment, they can go for reassessment as per the new provision. The second one is the risk management strategy criteria, which is fixed by the CBDT, that can be taken as criteria for the purpose of. Now what happens, number of Honorable Supreme Court decisions are there, particularly I'm recently talking one of the decisions of the Honorable Supreme Court in case of FIS Global Business Solutions Private Limited, where Honorable Supreme Court of the opinion that when the CAG objection has been given, or the auditor objection has been given on a particular point, that cannot be taken as a base for going for the reassessment. So to overcome that, now they made it very clear that they clarified that on the basis of audit information, and now the reassessment can be conducted. And so automatically what will happen? This will increase the scope of the audit, particularly reassessment, and more stress is given for the search and seizure. And now you might have seen, as per the new provision, there is no separate assessment will be conducted. Rather, it will be conducted under one. Previously, what happens in case of search, in case of requisition of documents, where the assessing officer found that there is a cash is available, property is available, billion is available, or gold is available, any asset is available, which is not reported in the return, then they can go for the assessment. And if the search is conducted on the premises of the assessee, then the assessment will be conducted on the searched person. But during the search, if they found the assets belongs to a third party, then that can also be, the third party can go for the reassessment process and by the jurisdictional assessing officer. This was the old provision. And in that case, the person, such person, assessment was completed under section 153A, and the other person whose assets were found during with the such person premises, so the assessment was conducted under 153C. So now what happens, because of the amendment made in the last year, so the reassessment of the both cases now coming to the purview of the reassessment under section 147. And what happens under 147? Now there is no requirement of issuing any show cause prior to the issue of the notice. That is not a precondition. So the assessing officer, if the assessing officer having the information that there is a excess asset is found, or gold, bullion, jewelry, etc. is found, in that case they can go for straight away for going for issuing the notice under 148 and go for the reassessment. Anyhow, this reassessment made it 3 years to they have reduced to 3 years, and in exceptional cases they can go when the amount I think exceeding is the 50 lakhs. So in that case they can go. This is the one of the changes has been made. And another important point, Dr. Murali was talking to all of you. He explained that the new return which is to be filed under 139 80A of the return. I have few points on that particular issue. Friends, you see what happens. What is the new changes has been taken place? Before going for the discussion, I will just tell you some of the provisions. You know that 100 there are few sections are there. I think it is 68. The sections related, I have noted it. The sections are 68 on disclosed income, 68 69, and on disclosed income, on unexplained income, unexplained cash credit, unexplained expenditure, unexplained investments, etc. It is a categorically, particularly, it is spelled out in the section 68 and 69, A, B, C, and D. So what happens now during the assessment or in subsequent way, it was found by the assessing officer that you have undisclosed income. Actually, if you have a unexplained expenditure, also leads to the undisclosed income. So in that case, 115 BBC, I think. Sakti Babu, I will take another 5 minutes to close. I know that it is delayed, but give me 5 minutes. So in that case, what happens?
Okay, sir.
In that case, what happens? When the assessing officer or any of the departmental officer during the course of proceeding found that there is an undisclosed income, and that is a specific provision is applicable 115 BBC, as I remember, the tax rate was 60%, and irrespective of your income, the surcharge is 25%, and health and education cess is 4%. If you take effective rate, you just calculate 60% plus 25% of the 60% plus 4%, it is coming around 70-80% of the tax. Now the question is, this is the case where the assessee is disclosing the income. Sorry, the assessing officer found the undisclosed income. But now what happens? The things which has been discussed by Dr. Murali, I will not discuss. I'll only discuss one of the points under this provision, that what is the tax rate? You have to pay if the person concerned found that he is having any income which is not reported. So within 20 more months from the end of the assessment year, he has to file a updated return. And while he filing the updated return, he cannot reduce the loss. He cannot file the loss, but he will file only the positive return. And when he file the positive return, he will not only pay the taxes, but also will pay the additional taxes 25% plus interest. Let's just calculate, if I am coming under 30% slab, then I am going to give you another 25% or 50%. You add it, then in interest you add it, it is not coming to the nearer of 78%. So it is a question is that there is no opportunity is there, which is one of the very important point, that if I have not claimed any tax benefit and I file the return, there is no time limit for further filing of revised return, I cannot update my claim. Claim in the sense I am taking deductions. I have not taken interest on borrowed capital. Something I left. Some tax benefits I have not taken. If you want to take it, you have to go by only filing a return. This is the provision of the law. And if there is no time limit of filing the return, you cannot go for that claiming the tax benefits. This is not going to be addressed here. And then what we are doing that time, as per that provision, what you have to do? Now, if you have not claimed any tax benefits, and there is no possibility of filing further return because the revised return due date is over, and in that case, you can approach to the Commissioner of Income Tax appeal, or you can approach to the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal, who has the power to allow you their tax benefits. Even if you have not claimed in the tax return, but subsequently you find out you are eligible, you can approach to the CIT appeal, you can approach to the Income Tax. They have the power as per the provisions. But this has not been addressed here. And another very important point is the provision talks about that you cannot go for filing a return of a loss, updated return of loss. But friends, I'm giving one example. I was just going through my original return which I filed is in 90 take is the loss. I found additional income of 50. And if I'm taking that additional income, my return is coming minus 40. Whether I will go for declaring it or not. If you go to the wording by wording, it is not possible. But if you go to the intent of the law, it should be allowed. This needs to be clarified. And similarly, many changes also made faceless appeal, income tax appellate tribunal, they are going for faceless appeal. And one of the point I will tell, government fix a date by 2023, I think, to 2024, a faceless appeal scheme should be come out by the government for the income tax appellate tribunal. But one of the points just I wanted to tell you and close it. One is the essence of having the income tax appellate tribunal to see that the justice is meted out in the spirit and substance. That means the income tax authority, income tax appellate tribunal is the last fact. Whatever fact they have given, you do not have any other scope to go to the High Court or Supreme Court. That fact is the final, even if it's wrong. And if we will approach to the High Court, then the High Court again will direct the income tax appellate tribunal to look into and go for the further fact finding. So that's why when a scheme is going to be introduced, it should be our request to the Honorable Finance Minister. She has to see that the scheme should be in the spirit of law. The difficulty which we faced in case of faceless assessment scheme, faceless appeal scheme, which could not be materialized. I am talking. One of the CIT appeal case, I have submitted all the documents last 9 months, but I could not get an order. It is still pending. And I came to understand that 56,000 appeals only disposed by the department, and the rest they could not dispose of because of the. So it is the high time for the department to study it. Anyhow, they have written that they are going to consult with the Ministry of Law to come out a scheme. So better we can see a best scheme from the government. So I think with this, there are many other litigation points are there, but since the time is there, so I am very much thankful to all of you for your patient hearing. I am also thankful to chapter and the chairman, Mr. Mishra, vice chairman, Mr. Raut, Shakti Babu, and the treasurer, and all other person for giving me opportunity actually to share upon my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your energetic discussion on income litigation and tax management. Due to punctuation time, we could not answer all the questions in chat box. We'll definitely share with our eminent panelists, and we'll also forward the answer from the receipt from the panelist to the participants. Now I would like to request CMA Suryanarayan Tripathi, Secretary of the chapter, to give the formal vote of thanks before closing.
Thank you, Shakti sir. Good evening to all and namaskar. Respected dignitaries on the virtual platform, Honorable MP Shri Bhartruhari Mahtab Sarji, Guest of Honor and President of our Institute, CMA P Raju Iyer sir, Special Guest CMA Niranjan Mishra sir, today panelist Professor Dr. S.N. Mishra sir, CMA Niranjan Swain sir, CMA Amit Kumar Sarkar sir, Dr. Abhishek Murli sir, Chairman of the chapter CMA Himod Mishra sir, and Chairman of the PD committee CMA Saktidhar Singh sir. Galaxy of CMA intellectuals, invitee, guest, past chairman of the chapter ARC, stakeholder, managing committee members of Bhubaneswar and all other chapter of Odisha. On behalf of ICI Bhubaneswar chapter and entire organizing team, I, CMA Suryanarayan Tripathi, Secretary of the chapter, convey my deep gratitude to the chief guest of today's occasion, to Honorable MP Shri Bhartruhari Mahtab Sarji, Guest of Honor CMA P Raju Iyer Sarji, and all the special guests and panelists, resource person for acceptance of our invitation, graced and address on the occasion in spite of their busy schedules. Thanks to Professor Dr. S.N. Mishra sir for nicely analyzing the Union Budget 2023 and its impact on the Indian economy. Thank you, sir. Thank to CMA Niranjan Swain sir for deliberation on income tax, litigation and tax management. Thanks to CMA Amit Kumar Sarkar sir for deliberation on indirect tax, Custom and GST, Dr. Abhishek Murli sir, for deliberation income tax return compliance specific with respect to direct tax. Now come to our own inspirable and humble person, CMA Niranjan Mishra sir, who always inspire us to conduct the program both for CMA professionals, students and stakeholders. Thank you sir for your wholehearted support to conduct this particular webinar. Last but not the least, I convey my heartiest thanks to each of the participants for continued support and nice interaction and to make the program grand success. Thanks to Chairman PD Committee of Bhubaneswar Chapter. Thanks to Chairman PD Committee of Bhubaneswar Chapter, Chairman, all the member of Managing Committee, staff member of Bhubaneswar Chapter, and all other chapter of Odisha for their wholehearted support and cooperation to conduct this webinar. Thank you all again to all. With this, I hereby announce closure of the webinar. Thank you all. Thank you, sir. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. Namaskar.